Chapter 3299. It was obvious that although Electric Lord had failed to break through to the legendary Supreme Heavenly Venerate, this failure had left him a very rich fortune. The most obvious point was that although his strength had yet to break through to the Heavenly Venerate realm, he had already surpassed ordinary peak Emperor Lords. This was something that the Battled Arch could clearly sense. He wasn't even afraid of the 10 great Thearchs. In fact, he could even slightly suppress them. However, he felt an unprecedented and terrifying suppression from the Electricity Lord, which was even greater than his own. Ha ha. You didn't expect this, did you? Yi Huang laughed heartily. Battle Emperor, you've been scheming all day to kill me, but you didn't expect that your scheme was already within my calculations. Senior Electric Lord, if you kill him today, I won't take a single cent from him. Everything is yours. Yi Huang looked at Electric Lord and said, if it was an ordinary Emperor Monarch, he wouldn't be worthy of me taking action. But Battle Emperor is different. Battle Emperor, you have followed the Fortune Heavenly Monarch to battle everywhere, and you are the Fortune Divine Dynasty's most loyal thug. You are also the most ferocious lackey. Who knows how many foreign domain emperors you have killed? Let me end your legend today. Damn it. The Battle Emperor couldn't help but curse inwardly. I'll hold them back. You guys leave quickly. The Battle Emperor made a prompt decision almost immediately. If there's only Yi Huang, he could at most suppress him, but it would be very difficult to kill him. Not to mention, there was still a terrifying existence like Electric Lord. He was very clear that reaching his current level was almost the limit of an Emperor Lord. To break through to the same level as Electric Lord, as far as he knew, it was impossible to achieve it using ordinary methods. In other words, one would probably have to die once and fail to break through to the Heavenly Venerate realm in order to reach such a level. However, the probability of that happening was far too low. It could almost be said to be non-existent. Even for a powerful existence like Electrolux, why did he fake his death for such a long time after failing to transcend the tribulation? Perhaps it was because he was recuperating from his injuries. He hadn't come out for so many years, and he was probably recuperating. Although this method existed, it wasn't a reliable one. It was precisely because of this that Electro Lord's strength had risen to such a level after recovering from his injuries. He could see it very clearly. It was precisely because of this that he understood that he couldn't contend against the Lightning Lord. He could still put up a fight, but the others weren't a match for him at all. You want to leave? Ha 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 ha. Since I'm here, none of you can leave. It's useless even if you run to the ends of the earth, because none of you are faster than me. The Electricity Lord said confidently. Apart from being extremely powerful, the lightning laws that he cultivated were also extremely fast. At the same time, he had an unimaginable resistance to heavenly tribulations. Otherwise, he would not have been able to survive after failing to pass the heavenly tribulation to become a heavenly venerate. Don't listen to him. Let's go. The Battled Arch roared as the nomological laws on his body were released. It was unknown if there were millions of them or tens of millions of them, but they were as large as a river. His powers were raised to the pinnacle. Opposite him, Yi Huang couldn't help but look extremely solemn because he realized that the Battle Thearch's strength was indeed above his own. For so many years, the Battled Arch had been invincible. However, Yi Huang was also ranked in the 9th realm, so he didn't think that he was inferior to the Battled Arch. However, an expert's strength could be seen the moment he made a move. The Battled Arch was indeed stronger than him. However, all of this was useless. The Battled Arch could still suppress him, but this was nothing in front of the Electro Lord. The nomological laws behind the Battled Arch began to burn fiercely like a long burning river, manifesting an unparalleled power and aura. He was the Battled Arch, and he had become an emperor countless years ago. Many people even vaguely called him the #1 emperor. How could such a title be undeserved? The emperor-level entities beside Yi Huang immediately felt a powerful deterrent force, which made them feel as if the Battled Arch alone could wipe out all of them. The slightest movement could cause the sky to fall and the earth to crack. Humph! How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? The Electro Lord snorted coldly and stood with his hands behind his back. He released his entire aura, and in an instant, the sky and earth turned into a huge thunder pool. Endless thunder and lightning flickered in it, and any one of the thunder dragons could severely injure an ordinary emperor. His strength was simply immeasurable. This was the great benefit one would obtain after breaking through to the heavenly venerate realm without dying. The butterfly sovereign could already feel the intense suppression in such an environment. It was as if the scene of his heavenly tribulation transcendence had reappeared. The electrifying Lord had simulated and even surpassed the terrifying scene of the butterfly sovereign's heavenly tribulation transcendence. Under the ravaging of these thunder dragons, the power released by the battled arch was quickly suppressed back to a radius of 150 miles. This had already touched the core of his defense. I will stop them. You guys leave quickly. If you don't leave now, you really won't be able to leave. The battled arch shouted. Master, if we leave, how are you going to deal with them alone? The butterfly sovereign asked hurriedly. The Electro Lord isn't the kind of person you previously thought he was. You guys won't be of any use if you stay. The battled arch said sternly. TSK, battled arch, you really know me well. Since your disciple wants to die, I will start with you. The lightning lord cackled strangely. However, just as he finished speaking, his figure actually disappeared from the sky. It turned out that it was just a lightning clone. He had played this trick in front of everyone, but no one had been able to see through it. Boom! When he appeared again, he was actually in front of the butterfly sovereign. Even with the butterfly sovereign's strength, it seemed as if she had no reaction at all, allowing the Electro Lord's lightning hand to grab her. Ha ha ha! Let's kill this little butterfly first. The Electro Lord laughed heartily, as if he could already see the butterfly sovereign being crushed by his big hand. In fact, this was indeed the case. His speed was just too fast as lightning. In just a moment, he had already arrived in front of the butterfly sovereign, and even the battled arch couldn't stop him in time. Although the battled arch had been fully prepared, he hadn't expected the Electro Lord to make a move just like that. Furthermore, he had attacked a junior without any grace. Swoosh! The battle Thearcha's figure had also disappeared from his position. He used the speed law to its extreme and tore the space apart almost instantly as he rushed in front of the butterfly sovereign. The big hand was getting closer and closer, and the butterfly sovereign finally reacted at this moment. Suddenly, millions of rainbow-colored butterflies condensed on her body, and all sorts of monarch butterflies appeared. Each of these monarch butterflies had the terrifying power to destroy a star. All of them flew out to protect the butterfly sovereign. Although she was merely a junior in front of the Electro Lord and the battled arch, and looked like she couldn't withstand a single blow, in reality, she was still a domineering Emperor Lord after all. How could she not be able to retaliate? When this giant hand reached over, these monarch butterflies that had been raised at an unknown price all began to explode. The power of each explosion was unimaginably huge, let alone when there were millions of rainbow monarch butterflies exploding at the same time. The frenzied waves of the explosions almost overturned the entire space. This big lightning hand was broken by the continuous explosions of the monarch butterflies, but even so, it wasn't completely destroyed. The difference in their skills was clear at a glance. The butterfly sovereign had just entered the Emperor Lord realm, but the Electro Lord was already at the pinnacle of this realm. However, this series of explosions finally bought the butterfly sovereign some crucial time. The butterfly sovereign finally avoided the fatal blow, but she didn't manage to avoid this attack completely. Bam! The butterfly sovereign groaned on the spot. Half of her physical body was crushed by the big lightning hand and turned into a blood mist that filled the sky. The remaining part was blasted tens of thousands of miles away. At this moment, she finally understood what her master had said earlier. The Electro Lord was completely different from the peak-level Emperor Lord that they had imagined. They were in the same realm, but they seemed to be two completely different existences. Just as the Electro Lord wanted to pursue further, the battled arch had already arrived. He didn't have the chance to attack further. Although the battle the Arch wasn't as powerful as the Electro Lord, he wasn't like the Butterfly Sovereign, who could be easily manipulated. What a pity. I was so close to killing him. The Electro Lord's look of pity made the battle the Arch gnash his teeth in hatred. But he's really weak. He's about to die, just like that. The Electro Lord looked at the Butterfly Sovereign in the distance. The Butterfly Sovereign didn't reassemble her physical body immediately, as she was seriously injured. Even an Emperor Lord's recovery ability couldn't recover completely. On the other side, the Chi Emperor and the Emperor Lord were completely on their guard. No matter how weak the Butterfly Sovereign was, they wouldn't be able to beat the Butterfly Sovereign to such a state if they were in her shoes. The Electro Lord had probably touched the threshold of the heavenly Venerate realm. Although he hadn't crossed it, it made no difference to them. They originally wanted to leave, but after this delay, it was too late. The Night Emperor and the other Emperor-class creatures had already surrounded them. At this time, it was too late even if they wanted to escape. Since we can't escape, let's fight them. The aura of the Chi Emperor and the Emperor Lord erupted at the same time. They were definitely not ordinary people since they could cultivate to this level, and they didn't lack the courage to fight to the death. The battle was about to begin. Chapter 3300. The battle between the two sides was on the verge of breaking out, and the atmosphere was tense to the extreme. The battle Thearch's expression was incomparably grave. He had originally planned to ambush Yi Huang, but who would have thought that things would turn out like this, and he would be the one being ambushed by Yi Huang. For ordinary people, even if there were one or two more experts of the same level as the 10 monarchs, the battled Arch was confident that he would be able to escape unscathed. However, it just so happened that this Electric Lord had escaped death. Even the battled Arch was not a match for Electric Lord. Just now, the Chi Emperor and the others had hesitated, and now they couldn't even find a chance to break out of the encirclement. I have to find a way to break through and break their defensive circle. The battled Arch roared, and the moment he made his move, Battle Chi swept across the sky, turning into a terrifying battlefield, and directly bombarded towards Electric Lord. At the same time, the battled Arch opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of essence Chi. This essence Chi turned into a majestic army of cavalry that covered the sky, and they bombarded towards Electric Lord. In an instant, the entire space was shaking, and under the attack of the cavalry that covered the sky, it was completely shaking. These cavalry converged into a torrent, forming a triangle, and their target was Electric Lord. Good. Cavalry conquering the heavens. Electric Lord laughed heartily and said, "I have long heard of your prowess, but we have never exchanged blows before. Now is the right time to test the extent of my strength. You, who is known as the #1 monarch, can actually withstand a few of my moves." The Lightning Lord's expression remained the same. He did not take such an attack to heart at all. Above his head, a picture scroll actually appeared. The entire picture scroll was formed from lightning. It was extremely mysterious and carried an incomparably majestic aura. As it moved against the wind, with a slight movement, it formed a terrifying lightning dragon. Tens of thousands of them wove into a densely packed net in the sky, and then, in an instant, it surrounded the cavalry that was charging over. When these countless electric dragons charged at the cavalry, they were instantly blasted apart. This force was extremely tyrannical. Both of them were more terrifying than the other, and each was more tyrannical than the other. The battled Arch was very strong, but compared to him, Electric Lord's strength was only stronger, but not weaker. The two's clash nearly turned the entire space into dust. If not for everyone here being sovereign emperors, just the shock waves would have severely injured them. The battle Thearch's strength was at the Electric Lord's level, and the battled Arch was already giving it his all. However, the Electric Lord seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll as he blocked the battle Thearch's attacks. Some inexplicable great Tao faintly appeared on the Electric Lord's body, and it even touched upon the Heavenly Venerate's great Tao. It shouldn't be something that the Arch should be able to come into contact with. However, The electric lord, who had failed his tribulation, could already come into contact with it. Hence, his combat strength was far superior to that of an ordinary peak stage Tharch. Battle Emperor, this is as far as your strength goes. What a pity. I still wanted to find an opponent to stimulate me further and step into the Celestial Lord realm, but you have disappointed me. This was also the main reason why he had agreed to the Night Emperor's request. It was a pity that the Battle of the Arch had disappointed him. He still didn't have such an opponent. Cut the crap, let's fight. The Battle of the Arch didn't want to talk nonsense with him. A long spear had already appeared in his hand. The long spear was mottled and had traces of time engraved on it. It was unknown when it had been forged. The long spear kept striking. It could be said that it was fast to the extreme, and it was ingenious to the extreme. The spear technique was displayed to the extreme. However, he was facing an existence that already had 1 foot in the Celestial Lord realm. No matter how hard he tried, it was useless in front of the Electric Lord. It was difficult to pose a fundamental threat to the Electric Lord. Ha! Senior Electric Lord, please delay the Battle Arch. I will deal with the Chi Emperor and the others. The Night Emperor laughed heartily. He flew out and flew towards the Chi Emperor and the Butterfly Arch. The other Emperor-level entities split into 4 sides and didn't dare to participate in the battle. Even the weakest among them, the Tai Saint Emperor and the Chi Emperor, were at the peak of the 9th realm. They couldn't deal with him at all. The Chi Emperor and the Tai Saint Emperor looked at each other, and the two of them tacitly protected the Butterfly Arch behind them. At this time, they also had to wait for the Butterfly Arch to recover. It was equivalent to having an additional combat power. This way, their chances of survival would be the highest. The two of them seemed to have a tacit understanding as they attacked the Night Emperor from the left and the right. Tai palm print. The Tai Saint Emperor directly formed a huge palm print and smashed it in the direction of the Night Emperor. This palm print grew bigger and bigger until it almost covered the sky. At the same time, the Chi Emperor finally made his move. He directly formed a sky full of air waves. These air waves were not the kind that had no offensive power. Instead, each particle of the air waves was terrifying divine chi that could crush a star. This was the fundamental power that the Chi Emperor had cultivated for many years. Obviously, he also knew that if he didn't go all out in this battle, he would probably have no future. Come. Both of you come at me together. I will suppress both of you together. Yi Huang laughed loudly. Wherever he passed, the sky and the earth became extremely dark. It was as if the sky and the earth were dyed with a layer of black. Following that, the dark night quickly twisted and spun, fusing into his fist and completely releasing itself. Boom! The Tai palm print and the endless air waves were also shattered by this punch. They could not get close to Yi Huang at all. On the contrary, when Yi Huang's fist strength spread out, it forced the two of them to hurriedly retreat and defend themselves so that they could vent the strength of the chi. Yi Huang took a step forward and directly rushed forward. He did not give the two of them a chance to breathe. With only the strength of one person, he suppressed the two of them to the point that they could not even raise their heads. Suddenly, the battlefield was divided into 2 sides. No matter which side, Yi Huang and the others had the upper hand. This made the Chi Emperor and the others even more anxious and desperate. Their state of mind could be said to be indomitable. Even in the most dangerous situation, it was impossible for them to have any feelings of despair. However, they had not yet entered the most desperate situation, but they already had such feelings. The deterrence that the Electric Lord gave them was too great. In their opinion, even the unimaginably tyrannical martial emperor Yi Shiwen was killed in a second, let alone them. In such a situation, it was inevitable that they would have a feeling of despair. It also made them unable to exert their full strength and be crushed by Yi Huang. They also understood this principle. They quickly restrained their feelings and then attacked with all their strength. Even if they died, they would drag Yi Huang down from his horse. Butterfly's sovereign quickly recovered. However, the serious injury that she had suffered previously was too serious. Even her body had only recovered by half. Could it be that the heavens want me dead? At this moment, even Butterfly Sovereign could not help but have such a thought. Battle Emperor, today is the day you die. No one can save you. Yi Huang laughed wildly. For many years, Battle Emperor had been trying to get rid of him. It could be said that Yi Huang was a big threat to him. Now, he could finally get rid of this big threat. Yi Huang, take care of yourself first. Suddenly, a clear voice rang out from afar. A silhouette appeared in the sky. In an instant, the silhouette transformed into 3,000 martial paths. They flew through the sky in a grandiose manner, chasing after the Emperor-level creatures. Those Emperor-level creatures were originally divided into 4 directions to prevent Battle Emperor and the others from escaping. They did not expect the attack to come from the periphery. At this moment, they were completely unprepared. They were surrounded by the 3,000 martial artists and were killed one after another. All of this happened too suddenly. In just a short moment, these majestic and domineering Emperor-class life forms had actually been beheaded. This is Taoist Martial Emperor. Butterfly Sovereign shouted in surprise. He had never felt that the hope of survival was right in front of him. In front of everyone, a figure slowly appeared. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen? Taoist Martial Emperor, it's great that you're all right. Battle Emperor was extremely excited when he saw that Yi Shiwen was fine. Yi Shiwen's appearance at this time was undoubtedly a boost to their morale as they were gradually falling into a disadvantageous situation. Ha ha ha, of course I'm fine. How could such a small attack kill me? Yi Shiwen laughed and said. In fact, the sudden attack just now had shocked him. However, it was impossible to kill him in an instant. He looked at Electric Lord. Electric Lord's strength was extremely tyrannical. He was the most tyrannical emperor Yi Shiwen had ever met. Electric Lord was even more powerful than Battle Emperor. For Yi Shiwen, he was a qualified opponent. Taoist Martial Emperor, please wait for a moment. I'll help you after I kill Night Emperor. Yi Shiwen said after some consideration. He had already decided to kill Night Emperor first. After that, Electric Lord would not be able to escape. No problem. Go ahead and kill Night Emperor. Leave this to me. The Battle Emperor's morale soared when he saw that Yi Shiwen was fine. He attacked with all his might to stop the Electric Lord. This time, not only did he have to survive, but he also had to kill the Night Emperor and the Electric Lord. Taoist Martial Emperor, it's great that you're all right. Tai Yi Saint Emperor and Shi Emperor's faces were also filled with joy. Without fighting with Yi Huang, it was impossible for them to truly understand how terrifying he was. He was a peak-level, 9th-level Imperial Emperor, a peerless existence. You two go and help Taoist Martial Emperor. Leave this to me. Watch me kill him. Yi Shiwen laughed heartily and took a step forward. The demon wings behind him suddenly spread open, and then he pounced towards the Night Emperor. That imposing manner almost overturned the entire sky. Yi Shiwen, you're too arrogant. Do you think you can kill me alone? Night Emperor roared and pounced towards Yi Shiwen. Chapter 33:01. Yi Huang naturally knew how powerful Yi Shiwen was. Previously, Yi Shiwen had consecutively killed 2 of the 10 great emperors. However, he didn't believe that Yi Shiwen could completely crush him. He didn't need to do much. All he needed to do was stall Yi Shiwen. After Electrocute Lord killed the Battle Emperor, Yi Shiwen would also die. In order to invite Electrocute Lord, he had paid a huge price. Naturally, he had great confidence in Electrocute Lord. Frog in a well. Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. How troublesome. If I wasn't afraid that you would run away, I would have gone to kill Electrocute Lord first. Only he is worthy to be my opponent now. Arrogant fool. Yi Huang couldn't help but be furious when he saw that Yi Shiwen didn't take him seriously. Normally, he wouldn't be angry because of such words. However, it was completely different in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was an ant that he could trample to death at any time. Now, Yi Shiwen wanted to be above him. How could he accept this? He flipped his hand, and a dark luster appeared. Yes, a dark luster. The entire sky was filled with this luster. He had already practiced the law of darkness to the extreme. He could reflect the luster. The aura of the night was emitted like a surging tide. There were tens of millions of these dark laws, and they swept up thoroughly, transforming into a shocking giant that covered Yi Shiwen. Yi Huang's attack speed was very fast. However, Yi Shiwen's speed was even faster. It was just a moment of effort. It was unknown when a sword light had appeared in his hand. It was unknown how many sword techniques were contained in this sword light. Almost every minute and every second, a new sword technique would be formed. It was ever-changing and impossible to grasp. Wherever the sword light passed, the Night Emperor's attacks would recede like a receding tide. It should be said that he had been utterly defeated. He had been utterly defeated. Yi Shiwen didn't need any special means now. He might have needed all kinds of means to defeat and kill Yi Huang in the past. Now he alone had the ability to destroy the world with his sword. So strong. Yi Huang instantly felt the sharpness of the sword light approaching him. It pierced his cheeks and made him feel pain. He immediately felt Yi Shiwen's strength. It was just a simple sword light, but it made him feel as if there was a dagger on his back. Yi Shiwen hadn't used his trump card yet. He was taken aback and retreated again and again. There were thousands of rumors, but none of them were as shocking as the one he had seen with his own eyes. His attacks collapsed in front of Yi Shiwen and splashed out with great power. Whoosh! Another sword strike was unleashed. The sword light was as bright as snow, and one sword light could chill the 14 provinces. The cold air that was forced out by the sword light filled the world, as if it had turned into a kingdom of the way of the sword. In this place, everything else was inferior, and only the sword was superior. This sword ray split into thousands and thousands of sword rays, like a white rainbow crossing the sky, interweaving into a huge net in the sky. The Night Monarch retreated and finally stabilized himself. He was not a pushover. He was once one of the 10 great monarchs. In terms of strength, he was not inferior to the Eagle Horn Monarch and Blood Empress Ling Long. As soon as he regained his footing, he immediately counterattacked. His eyes suddenly opened, and the aura around his body suddenly increased. Compared to his previous aura, his aura had increased by a few levels. The word Yi appeared above his head, and this word was constantly rotating and integrated into his body. Then, a dark halo burst out from his body and spread out in circles. It actually forced Yi Shiwen's sword ray away. On the contrary, he launched a counterattack. He suddenly grabbed out with his big hand, and it turned into a huge handprint. It slapped down, and it seemed as if it wanted to overturn the world. Cracks appeared in the sky almost immediately. One could well imagine the power of this big handprint. However, Yi Shiwen was still the same. His expression was still indifferent, and he just took a step forward. In an instant, the dark air that had pounced on him directly dissipated. Then, he thrust his sword again. The sword ray was ever-changing and transformed into thousands and thousands of kinds of power. Then, the sword blasted on the big black handprint. Bang! The big black handprint was instantly destroyed, and Yi Shiwen's sword ray didn't lose its momentum. It seemed as if it had penetrated the seal of the entire sky. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Huang retreated again and again, and used all his strength to barely avoid the sword ray. But his whole arm was constantly bleeding, and every drop of blood pierced a hole in the sky. In the first exchange, he suffered a big loss. He was able to suppress the Tai Yi Saint Emperor and the Qi Emperor without any difficulty, and even with ease. But when facing Yi Shiwen, he suffered a big loss in the first exchange. If he hadn't dodged in time, he wouldn't have suffered such a small injury. His whole body might have been cut in half. Only at this level, you can't escape death today. Yi Shiwen shouted and took a step forward. The sword light in his hand shone brightly and pressed forward. The sword slashed through all of the Night Emperor's defenses. How can I let you do as you wish? All of a sudden, Yi Huang's spiritual power skyrocketed. He didn't seem like a living person, but like a legendary ghost god. The power of the entire world was projected on his body, and the will of thousands of worlds were added to his body, and he could use it. At this moment, he was the only monarch in the world, the only overlord. Everything that the black light shone on seemed to sink into the endless curtain of night. Yi Huang stretched out his big handprint and crushed Yi Shiwen's sword ray. Then, a long saber appeared in his hand, and he counterattacked. Taoist martial emperor, be careful. That's the night beheading saber, the night beheading saber. The Qi emperor hurriedly warned. Compared to the electric lord who had faked his death, the two of them had a deeper understanding of Yi Huang. One should know that Yi Huang was one of the 10 great emperors of the Fortune God dynasty. Many of his unique skills and Tao tools were well known. It's fine. Yi Shiwen didn't take his threats seriously. He stepped forward again and then caught the long saber with his bare hands. Ha! You dare to catch my long saber with your bare hands? You're courting death. Yi Huang laughed loudly, as if he could see Yi Shiwen's palm being cut in half by his night beheading saber. Clang! A loud sound of metal colliding resounded. However, things weren't as good as Yi Huang had imagined. His long saber fell on Yi Shiwen's hand, but it didn't slash Yi Shiwen into two halves as he had imagined. On the contrary, after slashing on Yi Shiwen's hand, his saber couldn't move an inch forward anymore after creating a sky full of sparks. What? Yi Huang's eyes widened in disbelief. Not only him, but the others also couldn't believe it. As a top Tao tool, the night beheading saber couldn't break through Yi Shiwen's defense. This was simply a miracle. Not everyone could do this. Otherwise, who would spend so much effort to refine Tao tools? It was precisely because Tao tools could unleash power far beyond what it should have when complemented with its master. Isn't it a little too late to be surprised now? Yi Shiwen only sneered at this moment. Then he suddenly clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. The power of 6 paths of reincarnation formed a trajectory, cutting through the night sky like falling meteors and directly blasting towards Yi Huang. Yi Huang didn't expect Yi Shiwen to catch this saber with his bare hands, so he wasn't prepared at all. Although he tried his best to dodge, his chest was still hit by Yi Shiwen's fist. All the Dark Knight defense was completely shattered in an instant, and his entire body was sent flying. Puff! Yi Huang spat out a mouthful of blood, and the Golden Emperor's blood scattered everywhere. Just this punch had seriously injured him. There was a huge hole in his chest, and it looked extremely horrifying from afar. Without waiting for Yi Huang to react, Yi Shiwen's figure had already appeared in front of Yi Huang. Clang! The sound of a long sword being unsheathed was heard. The sword radiance cut through the sky like a waterfall. He didn't even need any fancy techniques. Just a simple sword technique was enough to defeat everyone in the world. Bang! Yi Huang tried his best to resist, but it was useless. His speed wasn't as fast as Yi Shiwen, but at the same time, his strength and skill were far inferior to Yi Shiwen's. In such a head-on collision, he was naturally at a disadvantage and was beaten up by Yi Shiwen in various ways. Yi Huang took Yi Shiwen's sword head-on, and his long saber couldn't protect his body in time. And the result of all this was that Yi Huang's body was densely covered with all kinds of cracks. In just a moment, the cracks densely covered his body, and every crack was oozing horrifying blood. Roar! Yi Huang roared, and all the power of darkness in his body erupted in an instant, forming a terrifying frenzy. With his night-slashing saber as the leader, it turned into a powerful attack and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. As for himself, he directly turned around and fled. Up until now, although the number of exchanges between the two of them was limited, it didn't stop him from coming to the conclusion that he was no match for Yi Shiwen at all. He didn't dare to stay here for long, and quickly retreated, turned around, and fled. He gave his all just to win such a moment to escape. However, Yi Shiwen had been staring at Yi Huang, so how could he let him escape? Yi Shiwen immediately laughed loudly, took a step forward, and suddenly slashed down with his sword. Bang! The sword radiance swept across Yi Huang's body, and suddenly there was another loud bang. Yi Huang's indestructible body actually shattered, and directly turned into a sky full of blood rain. Every drop of blood sprinkled into the sky. Chapter 3302. Yi Huang was killed when he was caught off guard. He certainly didn't expect to be defeated so quickly. His spirit was shattered by Yi Shiwen's sword light, so it was impossible for him to resurrect. Compared to killing Eagle Emperor and Blood Empress Ling Long, killing Yi Huang now was much easier. In just a few moves, Yi Huang, who was one of the top 10 martial emperors, had died under his sword. Yi Huang, who made everyone tremble with fear, had died under his sword. Ever since Yi Huang had rebelled, there had been countless people who wanted to kill him. However, no one had been able to do it. But now Yi Shiwen did it. Butterfly Emperor, who was healing, Qi Emperor and Tai Yi Emperor, who wanted to help, were completely stunned. They originally wanted to help hold Yi Huang back, but now it seemed that they didn't need to. Yi Shiwen killed Yi Huang in just a few moves. Just thinking about this kind of strength made people feel terrified. I'm afraid that from today onwards, the title of the #1 sovereign monarch under the heavens will change to someone else. If that old fart lightning monarch dies, the Qi Emperor said with mixed emotions in his heart. Judging from the strength that Yi Shiwen had displayed, it was obvious that he had already surpassed the Battle Emperor. If the Battle Emperor had such a cultivation, why would he need to call them over? If it was Yi Shiwen, as long as he knew the location of the Night Emperor, he could kill his way to the Night Emperor's door on the spot and kill him forcefully. There was no need for any overt plots or conspiracies. This was because in the face of absolute strength, any kind of conspiracy or overt plot would be absolutely useless. But now there was Electric Lord, an older emperor who had tried to reach the Heavenly Master realm and didn't die. Otherwise, they could almost say that Yi Shiwen was the world's #1 emperor, the #1 among the emperors, and probably not far from the Heavenly Master realm. Meanwhile, on the other side, the battle between the Battle Emperor and the Electrifying Lord had also entered a white-hot stage. It should be said that the Electrifying Lord had finally started to take the Battle Emperor seriously. However, the Battle Emperor had been faintly known as the #1 ruler in the world for so many years. Although it was a little unrealistic in terms of foundation, he wasn't inferior at all. In order to delay the Electric Lord's footsteps and buy enough time for Yi Shiwen, he had also gone all out. He had ignited his own origin in order to stop the Electric Lord's footsteps. Moreover, the Electric Lord had also been completely obstructed by this crazy obstruction. However, their desperate struggle only lasted for a short period of time because Yi Shiwen had already achieved victory at this time. The Night Emperor was beheaded. On the side of the alien creatures, apart from the Electro Lord, there was no one left. All of them had died at Yi Shiwen's hands. Haha, Martial Emperor fellow, well done. The Battle Emperor couldn't help but burst into laughter when he saw that Yi Shiwen had killed the Night Emperor. To him, there was no better news than this. The Night Sovereign had wreaked havoc for many years, and it wasn't the first time that Huang Xiaolong had wanted to kill the Night Sovereign, but he had never been able to do so. In a sense, the Night Sovereign, who was constantly seeking revenge against the Fortune Divine Dynasty, was much less of a threat to Huang Xiaolong compared to the Lightning Lord. Now that his wish had finally been fulfilled, all that was left to do was to repel Electro Lord. In his opinion, it was already an extremely difficult task to repel Electro Lord. As for killing Electro Lord, he didn't even think about it. Damn it, it's actually like this. How could Electro Lord not know that Yi Shiwen was also a very troublesome and terrifying existence when he saw that the Night Sovereign had been killed in a few moves? He hadn't even finished off one of them, and another one had popped up. It could be said that the situation was extremely troublesome. Battle Emperor, get out of the way first. Watch me kill him. Yi Shiwen burst into laughter and charged into the fray. It was still the same words, but at this time, his words didn't sound like they were boasting or encouraging. Instead, they sounded like a very certain prophecy. He charged into the fray, and the Avicii sword appeared in his hand. He immediately slashed out. The sword light contained thousands of transformations, and each transformation could extend into many more transformations. Such a technique could be said to be incomparably astonishing. You stabbed me just now. Now, I'm going to send you to hell too. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly, and the sword light in his hand slashed down at the Lightning Lord at lightning speed. The Lightning Lord's reaction speed was indeed extremely fast. He cultivated the Tao of Thunder, and this Tao of Thunder was naturally fast to the extreme. Clang! The Lightning Lord's speed was very fast. He wanted to avoid this attack, but Yi Shiwen's speed wasn't slow in the slightest. He wasn't inferior to the Lightning Lord, who cultivated the Tao of Thunder and the Law of Thunder. Yi Shiwen directly pressed forward and didn't give the Lightning Lord any chance to escape. In an instant, all of the Lightning Lord's escape routes were blocked, and he wanted to trap and kill him. Under such circumstances, the Lightning Lord had no other choice. He could only grab a lightning spear and collide fiercely with Yi Shiwen. A loud boom exploded. In particular, the spear in the Lightning Lord's hand released a frightening power of thunder. It was like a long dragon that rolled out. However, these attacks didn't have any effect on Yi Shiwen's body. In fact, they couldn't even make him retreat a little. Thump, thump, thump. Both sides retreated a few steps. This attack seemed to be evenly matched. The Lightning Lord retreated 7 steps, while Yi Shiwen retreated 6 steps. He was slightly superior. This Martial Emperor is actually evenly matched with the Lightning Lord. This world is really crazy. The Tai Saint Emperor couldn't help but say. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe. They were both Emperor Lords, but the Butterfly Sovereign was almost killed the moment she touched the Lightning Lord. However, Yi Shiwen was actually able to fight against the Lightning Lord and not be at a disadvantage. This was already a miracle. What? It's not evenly matched. It's clearly Martial Emperor who has the upper hand. The Qi Emperor quickly said. He could see that Yi Shiwen had taken 1 step back and had the upper hand. In this kind of collision, even taking half a step back could represent a huge gap in strength. Not to mention, there was a gap of 1 step. The meaning of this was very obvious. Yes, it's really so. Martial Emperor has the upper hand. It's amazing. The Tai Saint Emperor quickly said. He felt as if his worldview had been overturned. The Lightning Lord was at the peak of the 9th realm. He was an invincible figure who had tried to break through to the Heavenly Lord realm but failed. Among the Emperor Lords, it was difficult to find a match. However, Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all and could even match him. This was already a miracle. Could it be that Martial Emperor is actually an old senior who failed to break through to the Heavenly Lord realm a long time ago? Otherwise, how could it be like this? The Qi Emperor said. Although both of them knew some of Yi Shiwen's background and knew that he was an outsider from the Myriad Heavens realm, they couldn't help but have such doubts in the face of such a situation. It was because all of this had completely subverted their understanding. Among them, the Battle Emperor was the most shocked because he knew very well that Yi Shiwen was not an old monster who failed to break through to the Heavenly Lord realm. Among these Emperor Lords, there was almost no one who dared to say that they were older than him and had a longer history than him. Even among the Heavenly Lords, there were not many who could be older than him. He didn't know any secrets, let alone when he first met Yi Shiwen. At that time, Yi Shiwen's strength was far inferior to today. It was simply incomparable. He had watched Yi Shiwen walk step by step until now, and it was precisely because of this that he was even more shocked. After personally exchanging blows with the Electric Lord, he was well aware of how terrifying the Electric Lord was. Therefore, he simply couldn't accept it. The Qi Emperor and the Supreme Sage Emperor could still find a reason to doubt him, but he didn't even have such a reason. He could only forcefully swallow the shock brought by such an unforeseen event. However, he was immediately ecstatic. At this time, he couldn't care less about what kind of changes Yi Shiwen's strength would bring to the entire situation of the Fortune God dynasty, because that was too far away. For him, the most important thing was, of course, to find a way to deal with the Electric Lord, or even kill him. The fact that the Electric Lord was still alive didn't have much impact on the overall situation of the entire Fortune God dynasty. There was still the Supreme Heavenly Lord suppressing him from above. No matter how strong the Electric Lord was, he still hadn't stepped into the Heavenly Lord realm. But for the Battle Emperor, this was a huge matter. Killing the Electric Lord was equivalent to killing a major threat to the Fortune God dynasty, and also to cutting off future troubles for himself. Originally, He didn't dare to think about it, but now that Yishuin had such strength, such a thought naturally popped up. After the Electric Lord stopped retreating, he immediately calmed down. The guy in front of him was far more powerful than he had initially thought. Only a little more powerful than the average 10 great emperors was a laughable rumor. Could the average 10 great emperors be so powerful? No wonder he could kill the Night Emperor in such a short time. Even if it were him, it would be impossible to accomplish such a feat in such a short time. With the Night Emperor's strength, it was impossible that he didn't have any trump cards, but he was still killed by Yishuin. Such a person absolutely couldn't be underestimated. Swish! After the Electric Lord stabilized himself, he walked towards Yishuin step by step and suddenly accelerated. In an instant, a thunderous roar sounded, and in an instant, he had already arrived in front of Yishuin. It was precisely because of the fear in his heart that he wanted to seize the initiative and gain the initiative. Otherwise, he would be under the control of others at every turn. Boom! At the same time, a myriad of terrifying martial auras were released from Yishuin's body, and the laws manifested, turning into thick and sturdy ribbons that fluttered in the sky. Countless kinds of martial auras manifested on his body, and this was his great Tao. Facing the Electric Lord, he didn't underestimate him, but went all out. Chapter 33:03. The strength of both of them had been completely released. Both of them had far surpassed the strength of a Ninth Realm Sovereign Lord. It could almost be said that they were already halfway into the Heavenly Master Realm. How powerful their strength was completely reflected here. The Electric Lord had already shot out like lightning in an instant. He rushed in front of Yishuin and launched an attack. Immediately, it was as if Mount Tai was pressing down and the world was trembling. He casually stretched out his hand and filled the sky with lightning dragons. In just a moment's effort, they had already densely surrounded the sky. In the face of such a dense attack, Yishuin was not the slightest bit anxious. Instead, he directly rushed forward and slashed down with his palm. In an instant, many lightning dragons were smashed. These attacks were directly smashed into pieces. After these densely packed lightning dragons were smashed into pieces, a figure leaped out from the sky. It was the Electric Lord. His figure was tall and majestic. He stood tall and straight like the only god in the world. Seeing that Yishuin had casually smashed his attack, the Electric Lord was not the slightest bit moved. Almost in an instant, the next wave of attacks had already arrived. All heavens, thunderstorm. He roared and flipped his palm abruptly. An incomparably huge lightning source had already been flipped out. Yishuin had also obtained some of this kind of lightning source before. However, it could not be compared to these in the Electric Lord's hands at all. The Electric Lord's strength was also far superior to any Sovereign Lord that Yishuin had seen before. No one could be mentioned in the same breath as him. Every huge lightning source fell and exploded, causing the entire space to collapse. In the next second, it seemed as if it would completely collapse in the next second. Then, all of them fell on Yishuin's body. Yishuin was not afraid at all. The time robe appeared on his body, and a time domain appeared. It swept out circle after circle of time power, sweeping these thunderstorms into nothingness. They could not get close to him at all. However, on the other side, the Battle Emperor and the others were in trouble, especially the Butterfly Sovereign. His martial strength was originally the weakest. In addition, he had been seriously injured once. This time, he could not resist at all. Just the aftermath of the explosion alone caused him to be seriously injured again. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of old blood, and then his entire body was sent flying. He directly spat out an unknown number of years of martial strength. It could be said that his vitality was greatly injured. The Battle Emperor hurriedly blasted away the aftermath of the explosion of a lightning source that was flying towards him while bringing the Butterfly Sovereign along. If it was just him, the aftermath of the battle between Yishuin and the Electric Lord would not pose a fatal threat to him. However, the situation was completely different if he brought the Butterfly Sovereign along. The two were too strong. A casual aftermath of the battle could seriously injure or even kill an ordinary sovereign lord. That was the most terrifying thing of all. The Thais Saint Emperor and the Energy Emperor couldn't take it anymore and were forced to back up, unable to fight back. However, Yishuan wasn't afraid of such a terrifying attack at all. He didn't care if those thunderstorms kept falling like meteorites hitting the earth or the stars. He just took a step forward, and the sky became visible to him. He directly attacked and slashed down with his sword. The entire space was cleaved in half by this sword strike. Boundless chaos instantly poured out. The battle between the two had clearly surpassed the peak of a battle between ordinary sovereign emperors. Casually destroying space was just a piece of cake. The entire space was split into two halves by the sword. Endless chaos poured out instantly. The battle between the two had clearly surpassed the peak of an ordinary emperor's battle. Destroying space was just a piece of cake. However, Yishuan's sword momentum did not decrease. The remaining part of the sword continued to fall. The Electric Lord retreated again and again, evading this attack. However, he was also incomparably shocked in his heart. He was deeply aware of the power of his thunderstorms. An ordinary Ninth Realm Sovereign Lord would die a tragic death after eating 2 of his thunderstorms. However, Yishuan could freely shuttle through his continuous thunderstorms without suffering any injuries. This in itself was a very shocking thing. Such a method was almost beyond his imagination. He could have his current cultivation and strength because he did not die after breaking through to the Heavenly Master Realm. Although he did not succeed, he had already glimpsed a part of the Heavenly Master Realm, which was of great benefit to his own strength. However, for this, he had paid a huge price. He had only just recovered from his injuries from a long time ago. That was why he had accepted the invitation of the Night Emperor to deal with the Battle Emperor. However, who was this human emperor? How could he be so powerful? It was impossible for him to be evenly matched with him after breaking through to the Heavenly Master Realm. He thought that he was the #1 emperor in the world. However, he had underestimated the people of the world. As the saying goes, there is always someone better than you. However, such a sigh only lasted for a moment. Then he launched another attack. His body swayed slightly and disappeared in the sky. Roar, roar, roar. However, he only heard a series of incomparably loud roars. Those lightning dragons seemed to have come alive. They were densely packed and everywhere. They formed a mighty army and swept towards Yishuan. If an ordinary person encountered such a scene, they would probably be scared silly on the spot, let alone have any reaction. However, it was nothing to Yishuan. He had often encountered such situations in the past. All kinds of great battles against the lightning creatures of the heavenly tribulation were nothing at all. Such a scene was nothing to him. However, he was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he opened his double pupils and looked in all directions. He wanted to catch the Electric Lord's figure first. He was very clear that these lightning dragons were under the Electric Lord's control. Under such circumstances, no matter how many lightning dragons he killed, it would not harm the Electric Lord's body. In this case, it would be very difficult to defeat the Electric Lord. Only by finding the Electric Lord's body would he be able to kill him completely. However, wherever Yishuan's dual pupils passed, everything from the 33 heavens to the Netherworld Kingdom should have been within his line of sight. However, the Electric Lord had completely disappeared, as if he had gone to hide in a corner. Sneaky. Since you're not willing to come out, then I'll kill until you come out. I don't believe that you don't need to consume spiritual power to condense these lightning dragons. Yishuan snorted coldly. His footsteps changed slightly. He took a step forward, and the entire world shook. Space-time and all the principles were shaken out. They couldn't maintain that subtle balance. So, they were forced to reveal themselves. Circles of ripples spread in all directions. The lightning dragons that chased after him were completely destroyed before they could even get close to Yishuan. They could not get close to Yishuan at all. He was like an invincible god of war as he directly charged into the midst of these lightning dragons. No matter how ferocious these lightning dragons were, They could not get close to Yishuan. Yishuan didn't know how many of these lightning dragons he had killed. Suddenly, a figure appeared above Yishuan. He stood there like a god. There was no expression on his face. His entire body was surrounded by a lightning armor. This lightning armor wasn't ordinary. Every part of it was made up of countless lightning kingdoms of the god of lightning. It was unknown how many lightning kingdoms were contained in this lightning armor. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment, he seemed to have realized that it would be a little troublesome to deal with Yishuan by relying on these lightning dragons alone. An incomparably huge pool appeared in his hand. Countless lightning powers were rolling in this pool, and in the center of this pool was a huge eye, the Eye of Sky Punishment. Yishuan immediately recognized it. He was very familiar with this eye. Wasn't this the Eye of Heavenly Punishment formed by the power of the heavenly tribulation that he would encounter every time he enhanced his strength? He did not see the Eye of Sky Punishment every time he crossed the heavenly tribulation. However, he had seen it many times, so he could not be more familiar with this power. However, compared to the Eye of Sky Punishment in the pool before him, the few eyes of sky punishment that he had encountered during his previous tribulations simply paled in comparison. There was no comparison at all. You actually refined the power of the heavenly tribulation for your own use. Yishuan said with narrowed eyes. He instinctively felt a terrifying threat from the Eye of Sky Punishment in this pool. This power was no longer the power of the Electric Lord. It was the power of the heavens that he had borrowed. This was a power that belonged to the heavenly Tao. Even an emperor could not contend against it. Compared to the heavenly Tao, even an emperor was still very insignificant. At Yishuan's level of cultivation, he would often feel the impermanence of the heavenly Tao and the power of heaven and earth. But now this power was actually being used by the Electric Lord. He was no longer himself. He was almost like the spokesperson of the heavenly tribulation. He had become the representative of the heavens, punishing all things and people that he disliked. This power was extremely terrifying. It had clearly surpassed that of an emperor. Clearly, it was one of the things he had obtained after failing to cross the heavenly tribulation. It was far from just a great improvement in strength, breaking through the shackles of a peak emperor, but also a trump card that could destroy the world. That's right. I've taken the Eye of Heavenly Tribulation for my own use and completely refined it. No one can hide from the Eye of Heavenly Tribulation, and no one can survive. It's utterly impossible for you to survive, said the Electric Lord with a hearty laugh. He had been preparing something like this just now. Now that he was finally ready, it was time for Yishuan to die. This is indeed a good thing. However, what do you think you can do to me with just the Eye of Sky Punishment? Said Yishuan, not to be outdone. Chapter 33:04. Is the Eye of Sky Punishment not enough to deal with you? Although this isn't the complete version of the Eye of Sky Tribulation, who under the heavenly venerate realm would dare say that they could withstand it? I might as well tell you a little more. The reason I was able to survive the heavenly tribulation was because I broke the Eye of Sky Tribulation and weakened the heavenly tribulation. Do you know how much effort I spent to break it and subdue it? Now, I finally have a use for it. Electro Lord sneered. The Eye of Sky Punishment suddenly flew up from the thunder pool in his hand and seemed to merge with the entire space. The Eye of Sky Punishment. The expressions of the Battle Emperor, Tai E Saint Emperor, and Chi Emperor changed immediately. They could already feel the terrifying aura of the Eye of Sky Punishment. They had already reached the peak of the Emperor realm and could be said to be the best among the Emperor realm. The next step was to break through to the Celestial Master realm. The more it was like this, the more they could feel the existence of the heaven tribulation. They immediately seemed to be fixed by the Eye of Sky Punishment. They did not even dare to move because they could faintly feel the existence of their heaven tribulation through the Eye of Sky Punishment. If they were not careful, they could trigger the Celestial Master Tribulation in advance. When that time came, they were afraid that they would really die. They were not prepared. Even the Battle Emperor, who had been preparing for countless years, was no exception. Otherwise, he would have broken through to the celestial master realm long ago. They did not dare to move as if they were restrained. There was no cultivator who was not afraid of the heaven tribulation because their cultivation was in defiance of a natural order. How could they not be afraid? They were like rebellious teenagers. No matter how rebellious they were, they did not dare to ignore the authority of their parents. On the contrary, the butterfly emperor was much more relaxed at this time. He did not feel as much pressure because he was still far from breaking through to the celestial master realm. Therefore, the heaven tribulation could not find him no matter what. Your strength is indeed very impressive. It is incredible that you could break through to this realm with your own comprehension ability without breaking through to the celestial master realm. However, you still have to die. Electro Lord snorted coldly. Suddenly, the eye of sky punishment began to blink. As he spoke, a terrifying pressure crushed down on them. The battled arch and the others all grunted as they instantly felt this terrifying pressure pressing down on them. They felt as if their bodies were bleeding profusely, and the nomological laws and the great Tao in their bodies were starting to show signs of breaking apart. The Lightning Lord was simply too powerful. Coupled with the support of the Eye of Heavenly Punishment, he was practically invincible the moment he made a move. They could attempt to resist Electro Lord's power, but they couldn't resist the power of heaven and earth. Electro Lord had truly become a synonym for the heavenly Tao. Resisting him was the same as resisting heaven and earth. This was true destruction. He hadn't even made a move, but he had already unleashed the power of the Eye of Heaven Punishment to such a frightening extent. He didn't give the battled arch and the others any chance to catch their breath. At this time, Yishuan could only support the overall situation by himself. He immediately took a step forward, and the power of time on his chrono robe began to spread. It actually began to contend against the power of the Eye of Heavenly Punishment. His entire body was radiating with seven-colored light, and the divine kingdoms began to shine. Countless gods were chanting sutras, and together they constructed a supreme divine kingdom. Even if it's the Eye of Heavenly Punishment, it's simply impossible for me to yield. Yishuan sneered slightly. He had also sensed his own heavenly tribulation through the Eye of Heavenly Punishment. It was simply boundlessly terrifying, and he knew that he definitely wouldn't be able to pass through such a heavenly tribulation. However, that was all. Although the Eye of Heavenly Punishment could trigger his own heavenly tribulation, it was far from enough to defeat him with just this method. He had been able to cultivate to this extent, and it wasn't something that could be successfully achieved by relying on ordinary methods. Boom! Yishuan's hands suddenly tore apart, bringing with it the boundless power of laws. He actually wanted to tear the Eye of Heavenly Punishment into two on the spot. The others were fearful, but he didn't have such thoughts. In his opinion, it was merely a form of training for him. Since it was only a form of training, he would tear apart all the training. How dare you? You actually dare to attack the heavenly tribulation. The Lightning Lord was both startled and furious. Yishuan's audacity had simply exceeded his expectations. He was simply lawless, and he didn't care about the heavens at all. Since you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. The Lightning Lord stood in the air and pinched a seal. The huge Eye of Heavenly Punishment began to spin like a yin and yang fish. Immediately after, a huge lightning hand suddenly grabbed out from within and ruthlessly grabbed at Yishuan. It looked like a simple claw, but it contained a supreme claw technique. Yishuan wasn't afraid in the slightest. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward and rushed out with a punch. The fist energy twisted like a spiral, and the huge claw was crushed into pieces on the spot. Is that all you've got? Yishuan laughed heartily. The heavenly punishment is indeed terrifying, but this is all you've got. It's impossible for you to truly simulate the heavenly tribulation that belongs to a supreme heavenly Lord. You're still lacking if you want to kill me. The Lightning Lord didn't say anything. His eyes were like lightning, and his hands were constantly pinching seals. Immediately after, lightning attacks continuously flew out from the huge eye of heavenly punishment. Each attack was more terrifying than the last. There were fist techniques, leg techniques, sword techniques, and spear techniques. Every one of them could be said to be supreme martial arts. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of years had passed, but at this time, all of them were deployed. Although it had been subdued by the lightning lord, the eye of heavenly punishment was still the eye of heavenly punishment. It possessed some of the abilities of the heavenly tribulation and was able to capture the unique techniques of these supreme heroes from the long river of time. Once they were used, it would be at its peak state. The attacks of these martial Tao secret arts fell like a torrential downpour, as if they were free. No matter how strong you are, you can only resist one of them. Isn't there another that can restrain you? A sneer appeared on the lightning lord's face. It was as if he had already seen the scene of Yi Shiwen's tragic death. The battle emperor looked at this move in shock. This eye of heavenly punishment was indeed very impressive. It was simply inconceivable that a human could actually refine the heavenly punishment for his own use. This method was completely against the natural order. With this kind of thinking and this kind of method, it was no wonder that the lightning lord was able to break through to the heavenly lord realm without dying. This was already not something that an ordinary person could achieve. The martial arts that filled the sky fell like a downpour. Although he didn't dare to say that he could recognize all of them, it could be said that he could at least recognize more than half of them. Each was more magnificent than the last, and each was more powerful than the last. They were all the unique techniques of the supreme experts that had shaken the world in the past. No one knew how many sovereign emperors had appeared over the long period of time, and most of these sovereign emperors' ultimate arts had been lost in the long river of time. He had only seen some of them once before they were completely lost. Among these unique techniques, there were the emperors of the Fortune God dynasty, and also the unique techniques of the foreign emperors. There were also some unique techniques of supreme existences that had existed long before the birth of the Fortune God dynasty. He had also seen this kind of earth-shattering scene when he was young, but he had never seen it again. This was because many of these unique techniques had been slapped to death by the Fortune God Emperor countless years ago. He had thought that he would never be able to see them again in this lifetime. He didn't expect that he would actually see them again through the eye of heavenly punishment. This kind of unpredictable method was extremely terrifying because it had too many variations. If it were him, he wouldn't be a match for the Lightning Lord, even if he didn't take into account the disparity in strength between him and the Lightning Lord. This was because the Lightning Lord was almost single-handedly fighting against the super supreme experts that had fallen since ancient times. 1 or 2, or even 8 or 10 of them were nothing, but when this number reached the point of hundreds or thousands, it was enough to make everything collapse. Is this your trump card? Yi Shiwen laughed heartily and didn't take it seriously. In an instant, his body split into 3,000 figures, each of which possessed supreme power and a kind of great path that they had comprehended themselves. These 3,000 martial arts incarnations rushed into the martial arts that had fallen from the eye of heavenly punishment and began to fight. Yi Shiwen stood motionless and faced the Lightning Lord from afar. Boom! 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 The entire space had been almost shattered, and everything had been drawn into the chaotic turbulence. Space, time, and everything else no longer existed. Only the Emperor Realm experts could survive in this kind of place. Even the quasi-emperors would be swept away by the chaotic turbulence and die without a burial place. In the sky, hundreds or thousands of figures were fighting. The 3,000 martial arts that Yi Shiwen had transformed into were his 3,000 martial arts. 3,000 kinds of comprehensions were all-inclusive and were the source of all his comprehensions. And the martial arts attacks that had fallen from the eye of heavenly punishment had turned into human figures in midair. It was as if the great ancient emperors had been resurrected in the sky. Although they only had a little of their charm, it was already very shocking. Hundreds and thousands of great ancient emperors came crashing down, colliding with Yi Shiwen's 3,000 martial arts. It was unknown how many Emperor King level martial arts were released at the same time, fighting in the same area of the void. The battle emperor and the others almost held their breath. Such a scene of thousands of Emperor realm experts colliding could be said to be a rare sight since ancient times. Even the battle emperor had never seen such a scene when he was fighting with the fate creation heavenly lord in the past. Because existences at the level of the fate creation heavenly lord didn't need these at all. They could wipe them all out with one palm. Chapter 33:05. Tens of thousands of great emperor-level martial arts manifested in human form and clashed fiercely in the entire space. Tens of thousands of different emperor-level martial arts wills clashed. How shocking was the scene! The Eye of Heaven Punishment continuously projected the tyrannical martial arts will of the Emperor Lord level and directly pounced towards Yishuan to kill him. Then it surrounded him. However, Yishuan wasn't someone to be trifled with. The 3,000 martial arts avatars that he had split off from his body all possessed prestige that ordinary people couldn't even imagine. Some martial arts like the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Fist, Demon Wings, and other martial arts had long since surpassed ordinary Emperor-level martial arts by far. As for the other martial arts that were not in the top 100 martial arts, they were slightly inferior to the ordinary Emperor-level martial arts, but not by much. They were enough to compete with the martial arts of these Emperor-level martial arts that were once dazzling in the long river of history. The battle unfolded and instantly filled the entire space. It was as if there was no end to it. The martial arts wills projected from the Eye of Sky Punishment were constantly being destroyed, but soon more martial arts wills were continuously pouring in. In the long river of history, it was unknown how many tyrannical Emperor-level martial arts had existed. Now, it was as if they had all revived at the same time and were fighting at the same time. This in itself was a rare scene. The Battle Emperor looked from afar and felt that the scene was very shocking. Even when he followed the Fortune Creation Heaven Lord to conquer the world, he had rarely seen such a shocking battle. This was because these were not the true awakening of the great Emperor-level martial arts, but only the battle of martial arts wills. Otherwise, this would definitely be the first scene he had ever seen since ancient times. However, even so, it was already very shocking. In such a battle, Yishuan's martial arts avatars were constantly being destroyed, but they condensed again. Every time they condensed again, they became more powerful. While fighting with the martial arts wills of these Emperor-level martial arts, Yishuan opened the mysterious space in his body and frantically analyzed the martial arts contained in these martial arts wills. With an incomplete king-level dragon vein in his body, he did not have to worry about not having enough spiritual energy. As long as there was a continuous flow of spiritual energy, he could instantly comprehend many things. Yishuan didn't dare to say that he knew everything, even though his cultivation had reached such a level. There were many things that he didn't know. He had seen the world-shaking lost techniques of the most outstanding people since the ancient times. Many of them required him to learn and draw lessons from them. Therefore, Yishuan was not afraid of this battle at all. On the contrary, the more he fought, the stronger he became. Every time the martial arts avatars were destroyed, the stronger the martial arts avatars were condensed. This also meant that Yishuan's martial arts comprehension had increased to the next level. In such an intense battle, of martial arts wills were constantly destroyed and condensed. Many of his martial arts comprehension and many martial arts of martial arts had finally entered the Emperor level. Everyone noticed this change and opened their eyes wide. That was because Yishuan was fighting against so many emperors since ancient times. Although they had already passed away, their strength was still very terrifying. Only Electro Lord could achieve such a feat by relying on the Eye of Sky Punishment. How could an ordinary person even dare to imagine it? However, Yishuan still managed to achieve this. They couldn't help but be shocked. The electrifying Lord had finally discovered this point. Yishuan's martial arts doppelganger was getting stronger and stronger as he fought, and the amount of martial will he could summon from the Eye of Heaven Punishment was limited. Be it in terms of quantity or quality, both were limited. It was impossible for him to summon a stronger martial will, because his strength was there. If it was the true eye of the heavenly Tao, he would be able to summon endless martial will by relying on the power of the heavenly Tao. He would even be able to display the power he had when he was alive. It would not be a problem for him to have the combat power of a heavenly venerate. However, he didn't have the strength to do so. After all, humans couldn't be compared to the heavens. Therefore, he could only watch helplessly as Yi Shiwen's strength became stronger and stronger. Yi Shiwen gradually suppressed him. He immediately realized that he couldn't continue like this. Otherwise, he might also fall here. His attacks couldn't defeat Yi Shiwen. Instead, they became nourishment for Yi Shiwen and became his stepping stone. How could the electrifying lord be willing to do such a thing? Yi Shiwen was surrounded by layers of martial arts doppelganger. His entire body flickered with colorful light. The Mingxin ancient tree appeared behind him and enveloped his entire body. It seemed as though he was comprehending something. He was comprehending something at every moment. His martial power, which had originally stagnated, was also improving at an astonishing speed. Die! At this time, the electrifying lord finally made his move. He didn't give Yi Shiwen any chance to continue improving. Yi Shiwen was already very tricky to deal with. If he was allowed to improve even further, it would be terrible. Bang! The electrifying lord made his move. Thunder filled the sky. Under this kind of divine might, it raged like a long river. Yi Shiwen's martial arts doppelganger that was originally protecting him exploded one after another. They simply couldn't withstand such an astonishing attack from the electrifying lord. The electrifying lord tore apart Yi Shiwen's defense. In an instant, he had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. In his hand was a pool of thunder. Endless energy was churning within it. Their terrifying power flipped on the spot and clashed down on Yi Shiwen. The endless thunder had evolved into a majestic civilization of thunder. Under normal circumstances, it was absolutely difficult to see. It was only under such circumstances that it could be seen. The endless thunder poured down in torrents. It was as though an endless world of energy was pouring down in torrents. At this time, Yi Shiwen finally made his move. He reached out with his claw. It was a dragon claw. His entire arm had transformed into a dragon claw. He could transform his physical body anytime and anywhere. For the current him, this was almost like an instinct. Facing the thunder energy pouring down in torrents, he wasn't the slightest bit afraid. He directly grabbed it. In an instant, the thunder energy exploded one after another. All of them were destroyed by the dragon claw. At this moment, Yi Shiwen seemed to have transformed into the primordial ancestral dragon. He was the ancestor of the endless dragon race, the beginning of the dragon race in the world. He was a supreme existence. His every move could completely imitate the might of the ancestral dragon. In fact, he was even stronger than the ancestral dragon back then. Ancestral dragon seal. Yi Shiwen flipped his hand, and a seal appeared in his hand. This seal fiercely smashed down and collided with the pool of thunder. The faint roar of a nine-clawed golden dragon could be heard. Dragon race? It's useless. You can't stop me. The electrifying lord sneered. I am punishing you on behalf of heaven and earth. If you dare to resist, you are rebelling against the heavens. No matter how powerful you are, you will all die. Resisting you is rebelling against the heavens? I think you're really too arrogant. Who do you think you are? How dare you represent the heavens? Yi Shiwen didn't take his words to heart at all. He blasted out another 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It directly formed a 6 paths of reincarnation wheel and clashed with the pool of thunder in the sky. The skills of both sides were almost equal. One had surpassed the limits of the Imperial Emperor and reached an unprecedented level, while the other had reached the Heavenly Master realm and was still alive. His strength was also profound to an unimaginable level. Yi Shiwen had long been prepared for the electrifying lord's difficulty. However, the electrifying lord was not prepared for Yi Shiwen's strength and difficulty, which was why Yi Shiwen had repeatedly gained the upper hand. Now, he finally took Yi Shiwen seriously and used all his strength to kill Yi Shiwen. He was even more ruthless. With a long roar, a level 1 dragon vein flew out of the sky and was swallowed by him. He casually spat out spirit chi that filled the sky. Waves of terrifying power revived in his body and wreaked havoc inside. Do you think you can do it? Yishuan laughed loudly. Similarly, a level 1 dragon vein flew out of his body and was swallowed by him. The massive amount of spirit chi was all transformed by him and used by him. He had an incomplete king-level dragon vein in his body. In terms of wealth, he was much more powerful than the electrifying lord. After the electrifying lord devoured the level 1 dragon vein, the pool of thunder in his hand grew larger and larger. The power of thunder within it roared continuously and became stronger and stronger. It had even reached an unimaginable level. However, Yishuan was not to be outdone. He didn't take the electrifying lord seriously at all. Similarly, he fought in a bold and unrestrained manner and actually managed to force the electrifying lord to retreat step by step. No matter how astonishing the electrifying lord's attacks were, the spirit chi in his body was already full after devouring a level 1 dragon vein. It was so abundant that it was impossible to use it all. The remaining was used to activate the time robe. Hence, he didn't care about his own defense at all. He just kept attacking and charging into these batteries. The electrifying lord roared. Above his head, the eye of sky punishment had already been retracted. Then, it turned into a terrifying martial arts attack and directly crushed down on Yishuan. In front of this eye of sky punishment, Yishuan's martial arts clones tried to obstruct it. However, it was useless. In just a moment, they were all destroyed. All along the way, Yishuan's defenses were completely destroyed. This was a kind of magical power. The electrifying lord had completely refined the eye of sky punishment and turned it into his own. This was not only a magical power, but it was also a very extraordinary magic tool. With the blessing of the eye of sky punishment, the electric lord's trial had suddenly improved by a lot. For a moment, it seemed as if it was going to surpass Yishuan. Chapter 3306. This was his greatest trump card. The Eye of the Heavenly Tao was truly terrifying and powerful. It could amplify his own power, and he could even borrow terrifying power from the various worlds in the universe through the Eye of Heavenly Tribulation. This allowed the Electric Lord, who had been faintly at a disadvantage, to regain the upper hand. What a powerful Eye of Heavenly Punishment! Yishuan suddenly opened his eyes. All of a sudden, his dual pupils opened. All of his calculations were within his calculations. But look at how I'm going to destroy him today. Your schemes are nothing in front of me. The Electric Lord had taken out his true trump card, so Yishuan naturally wouldn't continue to sit and wait for death. He was also going to take out his true trump card, Universe Creation Palm. Yishuan's palm shot out. In an instant, the weather changed, and all the laws between heaven and earth buzzed. Under this palm, they began to tremble violently and began to manifest. This palm directly shocked the heavens and earth. Everyone felt as if the primal chaos was being reconstructed and the world was being reopened. It was as if the entire universe was being completely controlled. The Battle Emperor's eyes suddenly widened because he was too familiar with this palm. In an instant, his thoughts were taken away from the present, and he once again returned to the era of the flames of war. That peerless figure had fought everywhere and created the great era of the Fortune God dynasty. It was just that that era had passed far too long ago, so long that he thought he had forgotten about it. However, when he saw this palm, he suddenly recalled that dusty memory. This palm was the Universe Creation Palm, and it was known as the martial art that the Fortune God Lord was proud of. He had once relied on the Universe Creation Palm to kill a heavenly venerable emperor-level life form with one palm. Who didn't know the power of this palm back then? But now, there were fewer and fewer people who knew about it. The reason was very simple. Although everyone knew about the Universe Creation Palm, those who had actually seen it were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Many people had only heard of its name. Only an old guy, like him, still remembered the power of the Universe Creation Palm. Ever since the fortune god Lord disappeared, the universe creation palm had been lost. It was said that the universe creation palm had not survived. This was because he was one of the higher echelons of the fortune divine dynasty. How could he not know that the universe creation palm had not been passed down? But because of this, he was very puzzled. Where did Yi Shiwen learn this set of universe creation palm? This set of palm technique had long been lost. But according to the situation that Yi Shiwen used it, it seemed that Yi Shiwen had learned this set of palm technique. It didn't seem like he had obtained an incomplete version. He must have obtained the complete version. It would set off a huge uproar if this news were spread. It might have been a big trouble if it had been in the past. However, nobody could do anything to him with his current strength unless a heavenly master came into action. In fact, he might have killed one of them with a single slap. Even if a heavenly master were to take action, he still doubted whether they could deal with Yi Shiwen. Today, Yi Shiwen had brought him too many surprises. At this time, Electrolord had also discovered the astonishing power of this palm. When it first appeared, it had already shocked him. Bang! In the end, the palm of creation still collided with the eye of heavenly punishment. The two peerless martial arts finally collided. Boom! A terrifying frenzy rose up like a stormy sea, and then spread out in all directions. Yi Shiwen's 3,000 martial arts and the martial arts intents of many emperor lords, who were still fighting in the sky, were completely annihilated by this terrifying shockwave. This terrifying force swept out directly towards the Battle Emperor and the others. The Battle Emperor hurriedly put up a barrier, but it was broken in an instant. He hurriedly added hundreds of more barriers, and only then did he barely manage to block this frenzy. The expressions of the Battle Emperor and the others changed instantly. This was merely the aftermath of the battle. If any one of the two parties were to fight with him now, he would probably be severely injured in an instant. He felt extremely bitter in his heart. If he represented the limit of the Emperor Lord, then these two had clearly surpassed the limit. Although they hadn't reached the Heavenly Master Realm, they were probably close to it. He suddenly made a decision in his heart. After returning to the Fortune God Dynasty, he would go in a closed-door cultivation to break through to the Heavenly Master Realm. After preparing for so many years, it was time to try. It was either live or die. There was no other choice. Now that the situation had changed, only by stepping into the Heavenly Master Realm could he dominate the world. Otherwise, even a junior like Yi Shiwen would surpass him. Although his reputation was resounding, many juniors had surpassed him and stepped into the Empyrean realm. How could he not be moved by this? It was just that he didn't have the thought of cutting off all means of retreat. But now, he had the determination to do so. Boom! Because of the collision between the two parties, the entire space had already collapsed inch by inch. The space that had just been restored a little was completely broken in an instant. Thump, thump, thump. The Electric Lord was constantly retreating. The look in his eyes when he looked at Yi Shiwen was simply inconceivable. He had already exhausted all of his strength by using the eye of heavenly punishment and adding the power of the heavenly way to his body. His strength had risen by a notch, and this was his ultimate trump card. He even believed that with such a trump card, even if he was chased by a heavenly master, he would still be invincible and able to escape unscathed. However, Yi Shiwen opposite him was even more terrifying. This palm had directly smashed away all his hopes. He was too strong. He could actually increase the human strength to such an extent. Universe Creation Palm. Could it be the Universe Creation Palm of the former Fortune Monarch? You actually know the Universe Creation Palm. The Electric Lord muttered to himself. He finally understood why he had lost to. It was the palm technique cultivated by the great figure who had once pacified the chaotic times and founded the Fortune God Dynasty. No wonder it could forcibly increase Yi Shiwen's momentum. Hasn't this palm technique been lost for generations? How is this possible? How could you know it? The Electric Lord said incredulously. The more he guessed what kind of palm technique it was, the more incredulous it was. Over the countless years, There were too many halos that had been added to the Fortune Monarch's body, and among them was the supreme palm technique, the universe creation palm. Who told you it's lost? It's just that you don't know. Yi Shiwen laughed heartily and cleanly destroyed the momentum of the Eye of Sky Punishment in one fell swoop. Although the Eye of Sky Punishment was very strong and could increase the Electric Lord's strength, his universe creation palm was not the slightest bit inferior. Damn it! I don't believe that you won't have to pay a price to forcibly activate the universe creation palm as an emperor. The Electric Lord's expression was sinister as he roared. I can afford this price, but what about you? Can you afford the price of activating the Eye of Sky Punishment? How long can you last? Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes filled with confidence. As long as he had enough dragon veins, he would not have to worry about anything. However, if the Electric Lord wanted to activate the Eye of Sky Punishment, it would not be so simple. Oomph. The Electric Lord snorted coldly. He did not believe Yi Shiwen's words at all. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was just putting up a strong front. He was also forcibly activating the Eye of Sky Punishment. He knew very well how much of a price it would take to activate this kind of remarkable martial art. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen's words were just a dead duck's mouth. The Eye of Sky Punishment appeared once again. From the Eye of Sky Punishment, endless power was drawn out from the distant void and added to the Electric Lord's body. Boom! Magic power burst forth from the Electric Lord's body and turned into a terrifying power of thunder. Then it completely erupted. He pulled out a thunder dragon from the pool of thunder and turned it into a whip that lashed out. You think you could do anything to me with just this? Yi Shiwen took a step forward and smashed the lightning whip into pieces with a punch. Then, instead of retreating, he advanced and actually launched a counterattack. Universe Creation Palm. Yi Shiwen shouted and condensed the Universe Creation Palm once again. Then, he ruthlessly slammed it down. Again, Electro Lord bellowed. The Eye of Sky Tribulation above his head flew out continuously before meeting the Universe Creation Palm. Boom! It was another terrifying collision. The storm that was set off was not inferior to the previous one. The Battle Emperor, the Tai E Sage Emperor, the Qi Emperor, and the others hurriedly set up a barrier. They smiled bitterly one after another. If the battle continued like this, they were afraid that the aftermath of the battle would seriously injure them. In any case, they were dignified peak sovereign emperors. If this were to spread out, they didn't know how they would be laughed at. Bang! However, the aftermath of this wave hadn't disappeared yet. Another wave rushed over. The entire space had already turned into atoms. It was as if they had returned to the time before the Big Bang. There was chaos everywhere, and nothing existed. This time, it was Yi Shiwen who took the initiative to attack. He also used the Universe Creation Palm. At this time, the Electric Lord was directly pushed back very far. He was almost blasted to death on the spot. Again, Universe Creation Palm. Let's see how many of my palms you can take. Yi Shiwen roared loudly. Then, he unleashed the Universe Creation Palm again. It seemed as if it didn't cost anything. Bang! 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 Yi Shiwen's Universe Creation Palm seemed as if it didn't need to pay any price at all. It fell one after another and completely gained the upper hand. However, opposite him, the Electric Lord's complexion was ashen. It seemed as if he was holding back something. He had fallen into a complete disadvantage. Yi Shiwen used the Universe Creation Palm like a madman. However, he couldn't do this. He didn't have the capital, and he didn't have the ability to do so. Puff! Finally, he couldn't hold his breath anymore. He spat out a mouthful of old blood. His entire body was instantly sent flying as if he had suffered a heavy injury. Chapter 3307. Yi Shiwen unleashed a series of heavy blows, slapping down the cosmic creation palms as if they were free. Every palm could greatly increase Yi Shiwen's strength. Yi Shiwen's strength was already above the Electric Lord's to begin with, and coupled with the support of the cosmic creation palms. No matter how profound the Electric Lord's cultivation was, he finally couldn't withstand this series of heavy blows. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying as if he had suffered a heavy blow. This was because Yeshua no longer had much patience. Just now, he suddenly felt his heart palpitate, and a sense of crisis shrouded his head. This was a feeling he had never felt before. At his level of cultivation, even the path of good fortune, which was known to be fraught with danger, was not that dangerous to him. If he were to encounter another tempest of good fortune, he could rely on the strength of his physical body to withstand it. This wasn't arrogance, but confidence. He was already infinitely close to the heavenly venerable realm. At the heavenly venerable realm, the dangers of the path of creation could hardly affect them. Otherwise, those rumored trapped heavenly venerables wouldn't just be trapped on the path of creation. They would have already perished on the path of creation. An Emperor Lord completely grasped the rules, so a heavenly venerable could already change the rules. How could such a great figure, who was blessed by the heavens and earth, die so easily? Pantheon Tianzuan had been sealed for countless years, but hadn't he still relied on his last breath to finally escape great calamity and reconstruct his true body? At this moment, he finally understood why his heart was palpitating all of a sudden. It was said that there had been heavenly venerables who had been trapped on the path of creation in the past, but he had never seen one since entering the path of creation. Wasn't this strange in itself? Although the path of creation was vast, and there were many places that he had not been to, including the ancient path that he had come from, he still had not found it. However, even with the abilities of the various emperors, they still had not found a living, celestial venerable. This in itself was extremely strange. Apart from the tomb of a fallen heavenly venerable, they hadn't discovered anything else related to a heavenly venerable. If there was anything in this world that could threaten him, it would only be a heavenly venerable. Thinking of this, he didn't have the mood to continue pestering Electric Lord. He couldn't have such inexplicable palpitations, so there must be great danger. That was why he had dealt such a heavy blow. Otherwise, with just his own strength, he was confident that he could suppress the Lightning Lord. However, it would take him a lot of time. It was normal for a battle between sovereign emperors to take thousands of years. He didn't have that much time to waste, not to mention that there was still the heaven-devouring demon monarch outside, who knew when he would break through to the heavenly Lord realm. This was the most troublesome issue. If he hadn't been hiding in the creation god's capital, he would have immediately and killed him. If he hadn't succeeded in hiding in the divine capital, he would have of him. In the end, Shao Chun had not entered the heavenly venerate realm, so it was impossible for him to be fearless. If he had already entered the heavenly venerate realm, killing a peak quasi-emperor like him might cause some shock. However, who would dare to cause trouble for him because of this? Even the battle emperor couldn't help but feel his eyelids twitch. It wasn't just because of the power of the universe creation palm. Killing a peak quasi-emperor like him would certainly cause some shock, but who would dare to cause trouble for him? Even the battle emperor couldn't help but feel his eyelids twitch. It wasn't just because of the power of the universe creation palm. He had once followed the fate heavenly monarch and had naturally seen the universe creation palm. With Yi Shiwen's current martial power, it was nothing compared to that of the good fortune heavenly lord. However, he was also very clear that the good fortune universe palm was a martial art that even a heavenly master would have to expend a lot of energy to use. Let alone an emperor king. Every time it was used, it would certainly cost a lot of resources. Yi Shiwen was crazily using it like this. It was unknown how much resources he would have to consume to be able to use it. Does he really want to keep Electric Lord here? Such a terrifying thought popped up in the Battle Emperor's mind. Even when Yi Shiwen appeared out of nowhere and fought evenly with the Battle Emperor, he had never had such a crazy idea. That was a half-step heavenly venerable, far above an Emperor Lord. How could he die so easily? He himself had countless life-saving methods, not to mention Electric Lord. However, looking at Yi Shiwen's attitude now, it seemed that he really had the intention to kill the Electric Lord. It couldn't be said that he wasn't crazy. However, he He was well aware that he wouldn't be able to intervene in a battle of this level. At most, he could only watch over the others. If the Electric Lord were to escape at that time, he might be able to stop him. Since he had already offended Electric Lord, he might as well let him die. He was afraid of Electric Lord's strength and influence, but he didn't lack the determination to kill. The Lightning Lord was sent flying, and he was also extremely emotional in his heart. This person was simply going crazy. How could he not pay any price for using the Universe Creation Palm in such a crazy manner? In order to kill him, this person really didn't care about anything. Thinking of this, the ferocious nature hidden in his bones was aroused by Yishuan. He was born as a foreign creature, but he later severed his Tao and recultivated the Thunder formula. Relying on the accumulation of his previous life, he advanced by leaps and bounds and entered the ranks of peak Emperor Lords. He was a person who had attained Tao and was different from before. However, the ferocious nature of foreign creatures in his bones was aroused all at once. He actually wanted to fight Yi Shiwen head-on. His ferocious nature had really gone to his head. The Eye of Sky punishment flew out from his body and turned into endless thunderbolts. Each of them could easily shatter a world, and all of them slapped towards Yi Shiwen. "You're all courting death. Stubborn." Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. Since he had decided to end the battle quickly and kill Electric Lord as soon as possible, he wouldn't hesitate at all. Another Universe Creation Palm slapped out, and the Thunderbolt energy was smashed into pieces on the spot. Then, it directly fell and smashed towards Electric Lord. Another Thunder Pool flew out from above Electric Lord's head. It was also an extremely impressive Tao tool. The Eye of Sky punishment was nurtured within it, and the power of the Thunderbolts ensured that the Eye of Sky punishment spirituality wouldn't be lost. Otherwise, although the Eye of Sky punishment was powerful, it was actually invisible and shadowless. It didn't have a physical body, and it couldn't be preserved at all. This Thunderpool itself was his natal Tao tool, which was why he could use it like this. However, it was still useless. In front of the Universe Creation Palm, his Thunder Pool couldn't block it at all. Although the Thunder Pool blocked the majority of the palm power, the remaining portion of the palm power directly passed through to his body. Through the Thunder Pool, he couldn't dodge or hide. It would have been fine if he hadn't been injured earlier. However, he was already injured, and this attack added to his injuries. He spat out a mouthful of blood again, and only felt that the world was spinning. And at this moment, Yi Shiwen's next wave of attack had already arrived. He flipped his palm, and the martial Emperor seal had already appeared on it. Then, as his palm turned over, it ruthlessly fell. Bang! The cataclysmic seal directly bombarded Electric Lord's body. Electric Lord's body immediately erupted with a frenzy of lightning. The magic power in his body had exploded from Yi Shiwen's attack, and he had turned into lightning. Electric Lord's physical body felt as if it was about to collapse after being struck by gravity. This was the feeling of a terrifying power wreaking havoc. Yi Shiwen's power was too strong, and with the support of the Universe Creation Palm, it was indeed extremely terrifying. He still wanted to stimulate his ferocious nature and compete with Yi Shiwen. However, in the face of Yi Shiwen, who had completely erupted, it was nothing at all. He couldn't resist or struggle at all, and was suppressed again in just a moment's effort. Roar! Electric Lord became even more ferocious. He roared continuously, and waves of terrifying magic power erupted from his body. A part of his body had already revealed its original form, and it seemed like some kind of ferocious beast. This was the form of Electric Lord's main body. For a super powerhouse like him, who had achieved success in cultivation, he usually maintained his human form. For him, the combat power of his main body could no longer increase by much. At this stage, the battle between sovereign emperors depended on magical abilities and the comprehension of the Great Tao. The main body's form did not bring any advantage. To be able to cultivate to this level, even if one had a mortal body, they would still possess unimaginable power. There was no difference between them. An Electric Lord, who had revealed his main body, almost meant that he had been forced into a corner and had no way out. That was why he was like this. Yishuan's double pupils suddenly opened. He knew that the most critical moment had arrived, and it was time to kill Electric Lord. As for merely repelling Electric Lord, he had never thought of doing so. The consequences of leaving a future trouble like him alive could be said to be simply unimaginable. Even if Electric Lord didn't need to do anything, he only needed to rush into the land of the 4 prefectures when he was not around and start massacre. The consequences of that was not something he could bear. Since he had already offended Electric Lord to this extent, there was only one way, and that was to thoroughly kill Electric Lord. You want to kill me? Electric Lord saw that Yishuan's killing intent did not diminish, and immediately understood Yishuan's plan. He immediately flew into a rage. So what if I kill you? Who do you think you are? Must I not kill you? Yishuan laughed heartily. He did not take Electric Lord's words to heart at all. He took a step forward and chased after Electric Lord. Waves of terrifying power wreaked havoc around him, and the sky-flipping seal in his hand fell once again. Boom! Electric Lord was bombarded once again. It was as if 2 worlds had collided together, and the surging waves made the Battle Emperor and the others feel as if the end of the world had arrived. Bang! 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 Yishuan's attacks fell continuously, and all kinds of attacks fell like raindrops. Whenever Electric Lord wanted to turn around and counterattack, Yishuan would casually slap him. He used the Universe Creation Palm to break his counterattack and made him unable to do anything. Chapter 33:08. Every time the Electric Lord gathered a little power and tried to counterattack, he would be smacked down by Yishuan. He was completely bewildered and was no match for Yishuan at all. As the Electric Lord injuries became more and more serious, Yishuan slowly grasped the initiative and completely gained the upper hand. With such a huge advantage in Yishuan's hands, it was enough to completely crush the Electric Lord. The Battle Arch and the others felt their eyelids twitching as they watched the Lightning Lord's physical body disintegrate and reform continuously. This was a rare sight, and to be able to witness it once in a blue moon was truly an extremely rare thing. Before this, no one had thought that Yishuan would have the ability to kill the Electric Lord. At first, they had thought that it would be very difficult to escape from the Electric Lord's hands once. Later on, they had thought of ways to defeat the Electric Lord. Even at the most insane time, they had never thought that he would be able to kill the Electric Lord. But now, Yishuan had done it. Everyone could see that the Electric Lord no longer had any hope. It was impossible for him to make a comeback. I didn't expect Martial Emperor to be able to do this. He's really the #1 emperor since ancient times. The Butterfly Sovereign couldn't help but exclaim. Before he met Yishuan and the Electric Lord, he had always thought that the #1 emperor since ancient times was his master. He had almost reached an unprecedented realm, and no one could be mentioned in the same breath as him. Even the so-called 10 great emperors and 10 great emperors have been suppressed by his master. However, the strength displayed by Yishuan and the Electric Lord was completely above that of a Battle Emperor. So, there was no need to argue about who was the first in this regard. He even felt that even those old monsters who were cultivating in seclusion would not be a match for Yishuan. At this stage, as long as he hadn't stepped into the Heavenly Master realm, the so-called time advantage was already very, very small. When the Battle Emperor heard this, he couldn't help but sigh. He knew that it was only a matter of time. Yishuan would become the #1 emperor sooner or later. His title as the #1 emperor was only a title that some people knew. Many people didn't recognize it at all. However, if today's battle were to spread, then Yishuan's title as the #1 emperor in the world would be well-deserved. There wouldn't be any falsehood in it. It's fortunate that such a character was roped into the Eastern Heavenly Venerates camp. Otherwise, he would have become the biggest obstacle to the Eastern Heavenly Venerate entering the Fortune Divine Dynasty. At that moment, the Battle Arch couldn't help but rejoice. To him, being able to recruit such an exceptional talent for the Eastern Heavenly Venerate was undoubtedly something worth rejoicing over. The Tai Saint Emperor and the Qi Emperor exchanged glances. Compared to the Battle Emperor, they knew the gap between them. As long as the Battle Emperor didn't die prematurely, it wouldn't be surprising if the Battle Emperor reached the Celestial Lord realm. Although Emperor Lords were lofty existences that ruled over trillions of living beings, they still paled in comparison to an Empyrean. Just the strength of the two sides couldn't be calculated. At this moment, in the sky, the Lightning Lord had already completely released his original body. It was an extremely huge, ferocious beast. Many people had not even seen it before because this race was already very rare and there were very few clansmen to begin with. Only the Battle Emperor, who was experienced and knowledgeable, could roughly recognize the Electric Lord's true body. In fact, except for some Emperor Lords with large tribes, very few people knew about the origins of many Emperor Lords and their original race. If people knew about it, they might be dealt with by others. At worst, their strengths and weaknesses would be known by others. In that case, wouldn't it be courting death? Therefore, even though the Electric Lord had been famous for a long time, everyone only knew that he was a foreign being. As for what his original body was, it was still a mystery. But now, they had the opportunity to see his true body, and the shock in their hearts could be imagined. However, even if he had transformed into his true body, there was nothing he could do. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen's ordinary attack mixed with the universe creation palm had thoroughly stunned him. He had never fought such an intense battle. In fact, it was also his first time fighting against such a powerful person. Naturally, he didn't have any experience. He considered himself to be the world's #1 expert. He had never thought that someone could defeat him in this aspect. Bang! Yi Shiwen sent the thunder pool in front of him flying. At the same time, he slashed down with the universe creation palm. In an instant, the world changed color. All of the Electric Lord's defenses were broken in an instant. He wasn't Yi Shiwen's match. At this moment, Yi Shiwen stopped the universe creation palm that was slapping down. Then, he grabbed towards the huge eye of heavenly punishment. Rumble! The eye of heavenly punishment instantly erupted with the power of thunder. It was as if the heavens were angry. It was the power of heaven and earth. It wasn't something that ordinary people could control. This method of trying to control the heavenly might was simply offending the heavens. How could he not feel the enormous pressure? Yi Shiwen didn't know how the Electric Lord had overcome such pressure. But to him, there was nothing more convenient than this. He just sneered. Then he suddenly closed his hand and stripped the eye of heavenly punishment from the Electric Lord's body. Roar! The Lightning Lord cried out in pain, but it was useless. Yi Shiwen was still constantly stripping away his eye of sky punishment. In order to use the eye of sky punishment to its fullest extent, he had already completely refined the eye of sky punishment with his own body. Now, it had become the source of his pain, and it was impossible for him to struggle free. The Electric Lord tried to struggle. The power of millions of thunderbolts on his body turned into terrifying and powerful thunder dragons that pounced towards Yi Shiwen. But Yi Shiwen didn't care at all. He directly slapped the universe creation palm with his other hand, completely breaking the Electric Lord's counterattack. He wasn't a match for him at all. Very soon, the eye of heavenly punishment was finally pulled out by Yi Shiwen and fell into his hand. Yi Shiwen could immediately sense the power of thunder and the power of heaven and earth within it. It was constantly being embellished, and there were even many laws that were difficult to see roaming within it. This was because it was condensed from the heavenly way. It was not something that ordinary people could imagine at all. It was no wonder that the Electric Lord could rely on the eye of heavenly punishment to contend with Yi Shiwen. Moreover, he could even cultivate to this level by relying on the eye of heavenly punishment. Roar! Damn you! The Electric Lord roared. The eye of heavenly punishment that he had refined for God knows how many years had actually been stripped away by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had instantly destroyed one of his unique skills and one of his trump cards. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care at all. He grabbed the eye of heavenly punishment in his hand and actually began to fuse it into Yi Shiwen's eyes. His dual pupils began to struggle fiercely. This was because the dual pupils themselves were a powerful magical power, and Yi Shiwen actually wanted to use the Eye of Heavenly Punishment to replace them. In other words, he was absorbing and digesting the dual pupils. How could this not cause a violent counterattack? Yi Shiwen's refinement speed was extremely fast. It only took a moment for the Eye of Heavenly Punishment to fuse into his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he could only see that his eyes had completely transformed into the Eye of Heavenly Punishment. Although I haven't completely mastered it yet, I can already use a portion of the Eye of Heavenly Punishment's power. Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and said slowly. Suddenly, strands of bright light shot out explosively from his eyes. In next to no time, these strands of bright light completely transformed into heavenly punishment, and then they transformed into lightning that covered the sky and blasted towards the lightning lord. This was heaven's will. It could wield the power of heaven. This was a little like the calamity godhead that Yi Shiwen had obtained previously. It could control all the calamity powers in the world and obey everything. The electric lord had no time to resist at all. He had been severely injured too many times. Now, his injuries had accumulated to an extent that even he felt horrified. He was unable to resist at all. In the next instant, he was directly blasted. Bang! The electric lord's physical body was smashed to pieces on the spot. He reassembled with great difficulty, but he could only stare at Yi Shiwen hatefully. He didn't dare to approach him, and he didn't dare to launch another counterattack. He had been thoroughly beaten by Yi Shiwen, and all of his pride had also been smashed away. It was impossible for him to have any unrealistic thoughts. Martial Emperor, even if you obtain the Eye of Heavenly Punishment, you can't truly obtain its power because it doesn't belong to you. It will disappear sooner or later. The Electric Lord said fiercely. He was trying to attract Yi Shiwen's attention and have Yi Shiwen talk to him so that he could catch his breath. For an Emperor Lord like him, even if it was just a breath, it would have an incomparably huge effect on him. You're right. If I want to keep the Eye of Heavenly Punishment for a long time, I'll still need your lightning pool. This is just right. Leave it all to me. Yi Shiwen actually looked like he was completely right. Then, he reached out with one hand and grabbed in the direction of the lightning pool. In just a moment, the lightning pool had already been caught by Yi Shiwen. Although the Electric Lord tried his best to dodge, it was completely useless in front of Yi Shiwen. The Electric Lord had just breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. He had finally diverted Yi Shiwen's attention, but he saw Yi Shiwen suddenly open his eyes. Then, a sword had appeared in his other hand. Whoosh! The sword light tore through the sky and fell directly, ruthlessly slashing him into pieces. Poochie! The Electric Lord's physical body and spirit were slashed together, and he finally died. Chapter 33:09. The Electric Lord had perished, and his body had been taken away. His Eye of Sky Punishment had also been thoroughly refined by Yi Shiwen. Unlike the Electric Lord who used the Eye of Sky Punishment as a magic tool, Yi Shiwen had integrated the Eye of Sky Punishment into his body. This had allowed the Eye of Sky Punishment to form inside his body at the same time. This had allowed his eyes to form an extremely powerful magical power and a kind of martial technique. At that time, after refining it completely, it would become another trump card of his. It could be said to be invincible against experts of the same level. Not every Emperor Lord had the means like Yi Shiwen, who could condense 3,000 martial arts incarnations to contend against him. In addition, he could also absorb the power of laws through the Eye of Sky Punishment for his own use. This was also a rather remarkable method. All of these increased Yi Shiwen's foundation and trump cards. Of course, if he wanted to activate the Eye of Sky Punishment, he would definitely consume a lot of energy. However, this was not a problem for him. The King-level Dragon Vein was a wealth that even an ordinary Celestial Lord could not possess. Now that it was in his hands, what was there for him to be afraid of? Then, Yi Shiwen absorbed the Thunder Pool into his body, turning it into a means and source of nurturing the Eye of Sky Punishment. From the Electric Lord's body, Yi Shiwen discovered a lot of law crystals. There were no less than 300 units of law crystals. This was also because the Electric Lord was such a matchless expert. If it were anyone else, they would not have so many law crystals. The Electric Lord had not even had the time to use them all. Now, it had completely benefited Yi Shiwen. This battle with the Electric Lord was very rewarding. Although the Electric Lord's skills were not as good as his, he was still very powerful. There was even hope for a comeback. At his level of cultivation, it could be said to be very difficult to find a worthy opponent. If it was a Celestial Lord, Yi Shiwen would not be a match for him with his strength. However, if it was an ordinary Emperor Lord like the Battle Emperor, he would not be a match for Yi Shiwen at all. This made an opponent like the Electric Lord very precious. Such a life and death battle was better than hundreds of years of bitter cultivation. Yi Shiwen flew down from the sky after he had collected the Electric Lord's things. He flew to the side of the Battle Emperor and said, "It's finally over. Both the Electric Lord and the Night Emperor have been killed. Fellow Taoist Battle Emperor, as far as I know, both the Night Emperor and the Electric Lord should have received a lot of rewards, right?" "That's right. Just killing the Night Emperor is already a huge amount of wealth. As for the Electric Monarch, we all thought that he was dead, so we didn't set up any rewards. But when I return, I will explain everything to you. You have eliminated such an opponent for our Fortune God dynasty, so you should be rewarded," the Battle Emperor said. Other than being a little careful, the Battle Arch was still very loyal to his duty. When it came to matters of right and wrong, he would never back down. This was a method that both sides could use. If the Battle Arch was defeated by the Night Emperor Al-Beast, then the Night Emperor would be able to obtain a reward from a super expert from the outer domain. It would not be any weaker than this. The Battle Arch was a little excited. He could imagine how shocking it would be once the news spread. Both the Electric Lord and the Night Emperor were super experts who had been famous for countless years. But now, both of them had fallen in Yi Shiwen's hands. One could imagine that this would greatly boost the morale of the people in the Fortune God dynasty. "That's good. I'll have to trouble you then, fellow Taoist Battle Emperor," Yi Shiwen said with a smile. These were things that he had obtained, so he naturally would not let them go. This was especially true when the pressure on the divine fire, heavenly venerate, and the sky, devouring demon emperor was increasing day by day. How could he relax? "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Before leaving the path of creation, I still need to find enough law crystals to prepare for a breakthrough to the heavenly venerate realm." Yi Shiwen did not hide anything and said this on the spot. On the contrary, the Battle Arch and the Butterfly Sovereign looked at each other. Yi Shiwen's strength was already so amazing, but he was still not satisfied. He still wanted to break through to the higher heavenly venerate realm. "There's nothing else for the time being, but please pay attention to the time. The path of creation will close in 3 years at most," said the Battle Arch. The crack on the path of creation could not be maintained naturally. After the crack appeared, the super experts of the Fortune God dynasty appeared and maintained it. They even increased the crack's existence. However, this couldn't last long. There wasn't much time left. After all, every second that the crack on the path of creation was maintained consumed a massive amount of wealth. Only a colossus like the Fortune God dynasty could maintain it. It was impossible to find the legendary path of creation at such a late time. No one really cared about it. Most people came to try their luck. It would be great if they encountered it, but there was nothing they could do if they didn't. "I understand." Yi Shiwen nodded and then turned around. He stepped on a ray of light and disappeared from this fragmented world. This person's future is limitless. It won't be difficult for him to enter the heavenly venerate realm. The Tai Sage Emperor sighed after watching Yi Shiwen leave for a long time. Everything that had happened before was like a dream to him. From life to death, and from death to life again. It was as if he had walked through the gates of hell and had almost died here. His heart was filled with even more insights. That's not all. With his strength, he might have a chance to reach that legendary realm in the future, said the Qi Emperor. However, the only problem is that although he is very strong, as far as I know, he has offended the heaven-devouring Demon King. I'm afraid he won't be able to get away with it. The heaven-devouring Demon King has been in closed-door training for a long time. It is said that he is very confident. Once the heaven-devouring Demon King makes a breakthrough and becomes the heaven-devouring Demon King, how can he let him go? I'm afraid he will die before he can grow up. It's a pity that such a good seedling will fall in the hands of the heaven-devouring Demon King. The battled arch couldn't help but say. He felt that it was a pity. It's a pity that all the heavenly venerates are cultivating in the depths of the starry sky. Otherwise, I could look for the Eastern heavenly venerate and ask for a chance of survival for him. The Battle Emperor's words revealed an earth-shattering secret. The Fortune God dynasty's heavenly venerables were not cultivating in the Fortune God dynasty. However, the heavenly venerables didn't seem surprised at all. It was obvious that they already knew about this matter. If they didn't know about it in the beginning, then as time passed, even the most confidential information would gradually leak out. Moreover, the heavenly venerates had no intention of keeping a secret. After all, although the heavenly venerates were not in the Fortune God dynasty and were cultivating in the depths of the starry sky, they hadn't fallen yet. As long as they were there, the Fortune God dynasty would be as stable as Mount Tai. No one could compare to them. It all depends on the individual's fortune. I don't think he can escape this calamity. He doesn't look like he will die young, said the Battle Emperor. In his heart, he cherished the talents of the Fortune God dynasty. However, it was impossible for him to go against the heaven-devouring Demon Emperor for Yishuan. Once the heaven-devouring Demon Emperor stepped into the heavenly venerate realm and became the legendary heaven-devouring Demon Emperor, no one could stop him. The difference between a heavenly venerate and a peak emperor lord was only half a realm. However, the difference in status was like heaven and earth. Yishuan didn't know that everyone was talking about him. He had already left this extremely damaged world. After the battle between him and the Electric Lord, the entire space had almost shattered into chaos. He didn't know how long it would take for it to recover. The two of them were too strong. They were already halfway into the heavenly venerate realm. However, the two of them were still a far cry from the invincible existence who could leave behind such a huge battlefield here. Right now, the most important thing for him to do was to find enough law crystals and enough martial will. Then, he would store these martial wills in his altar, which he would prepare to deal with the heaven-devouring demon monarch in the future. Although it would be difficult for him to step into the heavenly venerate realm in a short period of time, it didn't mean that he wouldn't do anything. Yishuan shuttled back and forth between the broken spaces as he thought of this. He was looking for the law crystals. However, he found that not all spaces had the existence of law crystals. In fact, many spaces didn't have law crystals at all. Moreover, many spaces that had law crystals had already been plundered by the emperors who had come here earlier. If this trend continued, sooner or later, the Crystal Valley would be completely deserted because there were no law crystals to be found. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, another year had passed. During this time, Yishuan didn't change much. He continued to explore and cultivate at the same time. Yishuan had discovered 50 units of law crystals during this period of more than a year. His harvest wasn't small. However, he had used up 300 units of law crystals just to comprehend the heavenly venerables principles. So he had lost more than 200 law crystals in this period of more than a year. Relying on the consumption of these law crystals, he was getting closer and closer to the heavenly venerate realm. He felt as if he could break through to the heavenly venerate realm at any time. However, there was a thin membrane that kept him from advancing. It kept him stuck at the peak emperor lord level, unable to break through to the heavenly venerate realm. However, his powers had still grown considerably under such circumstances. Not only had his powers increased, but he had also completely refined the lightning pool. At present, he could be said to have become the second Electrolux Lord. In terms of the power to control the laws of lightning, he was not inferior to the Electrolux Lord at all. He had also gained complete control over the eye of heavenly tribulation and refined it for his own use. Chapter 33:10 Yishuan did not refine it as a magic tool. Instead, he thoroughly understood its mysteries and refined it as a magical power. Its power was not inferior to the Electric Lord's, but its true peak power had yet to be fully displayed. The might of this magical power was similar to that of the universe creation palm. It would increase along with Yishuan's strength. In fact, there was almost no limit to it. Yishuan hadn't seen the limit of the eye of heavenly punishment so far. All these added up had increased Yishuan's strength by a lot. If he were to encounter the Electric Lord now, he would not need to fight for as long as before. It could be said that he would be able to defeat the Electric Lord in a short time, let alone the Night Emperor. Yishuan would be able to severely injure Yishuan in a single move, and then kill him with a casual strike. Such an increase in strength could be said to be incomparably shocking. Naturally, this was with the help of the mysterious space. With a king-level dragon vein, the mysterious space could analyze at all times, and there was no need to worry about a lack of energy. This was something that couldn't be matched by multiple level 2 dragon veins. As long as there was enough energy, the mysterious space would operate rapidly, and this would eventually be transformed into Yishuan's strength for his use. In a space, there were terrifying sword lights everywhere, and in the very center, there was a sword aura that was tens of thousands of miles long floating in the air. Under the control of the sword intent, it was releasing terrifying power at any time and place. This was a heavenly master-level technique. Even if an ordinary Emperor King were to approach it, there was a possibility of being seriously injured, let alone being hit directly. That was almost equivalent to death, and there was no other possibility. At this time, below the sword intent, an altar was floating up and down. Chains flew out from the altar. These chains seemed to be made of the toughest metal. They locked onto the incomparably huge sword intent and pulled it down bit by bit. Although the efficiency wasn't very high, it only took a month for most of the sword intent to be pulled down. At this moment, it wasn't too far away from the altar. In front of the altar, Yishuan had a dignified look on his face. His eyes were firmly staring at this incomparably huge sword key. This sword chi was obviously a technique of an Empyrean or higher. It was unknown which supreme existence had left it behind, but it was at least at the Empyrean level. Even though countless years had passed, these martial arts attacks had not disappeared. On the contrary, they had changed forms and still existed. That terrifying power made Yishuan's heart palpitate at first glance. Normally, Yishuan would have turned around and left when he saw it. This kind of means that surpassed the Emperor level was not something that he could look up to. If he accidentally touched it, then the power would be really scary. However, now that he had the altar, his thoughts were completely different. He wanted to capture the sword chi and use it for himself. This idea was very crazy. If this news was told to others, it would probably cause an uproar immediately. No one would have thought that Yishuan would be so crazy to use such means. However, he was about to succeed. This sword chi was pulled to the edge of the altar by him little by little. This process alone took more than a month. It was extremely terrifying. He did not dare to relax even a little. Boom! The sword chi smashed on the altar fiercely, but it was unable to split the altar apart. It just sank into the altar little by little. At this time, Yishuan had already refined the altar. Naturally, he could feel that the sword chi was integrated into it little by little. It was captured little by little, but this was not all. Suddenly, the sword chi began to tremble violently. In a scattered frenzy, there were countless sword chi contained in it. Then it completely exploded. Boom! Countless sword chi swept out, almost blowing Yishuan's body away. His flesh and bones were blown away. This was a kind of hurricane that was more terrible than any heaven's retribution. Yishuan's indestructible body could not resist it. It began to collapse inch by inch. Then it reassembled inch by inch. It was constantly resisting. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Yishuan gritted his teeth. He knew that he was just a little bit away from completely subduing this sword chi. He absolutely couldn't give in now. Otherwise, everything would vanish into thin air, and all his efforts would be in vain. Puff! Yishuin spat out a mouthful of blood essence. It turned into a mouthful of essence chi, which turned into a powerful force. It came out majestically and directly blocked the frenzy. Then, Yishuin suddenly felt much better. This mouthful of blood essence had consumed hundreds of years' worth of cultivation. It had a great impact on him. Finally, the last bit of sword intent was pulled into the altar and completely sealed within. At this time, the terrifying sword chi storm above the sky finally dissipated without a trace. Phew! Yishuin breathed a sigh of relief. He had almost been seriously injured by this sword chi. Although he had been careful and sealed the sword chi for more than a month, he had still been forced to spit out his essence chi to resist it. Fortunately, he had succeeded in the end. No matter how much he had paid before, it was all worth it. It should be known that it was very difficult to find a heavenly master's method, and it was even more difficult to completely refine it for one's own use. Ordinary people could not even think about it. Yishuin could only do it with the help of the altar. Heaven-devouring demon emperor, I'll let you see how terrifying the power of this sword is. A cold smile appeared on his face. He had naturally prepared this sword attack for the heaven-devouring demon monarch. If the heaven-devouring demon monarch had not broken through to the heavenly lord realm, he would have been killed on the spot. If he had broken through to the heavenly lord realm, he would also have been severely injured. Of course, if the heaven-devouring demon emperor had not entered the heavenly master realm, he would not have needed to use this sword chi. He would have been completely killed by Yishuin. There was no other possibility. He had done this just in case. He had not entered the heavenly master realm, but it did not prevent him from knowing how terrifying a heavenly master realm expert was. He did not dare to let his guard down. Now that this sword chi has finally been absorbed into the altar, it's time to see if Alchemy Emperor is ready, said Yishuin. Within his body, the remnants of the heaven-devouring blood pill and mysterious creation pill continued to revolve, constantly stripping out enormous medicinal power that surged into his limbs and bones. It allowed him to improve at every moment, becoming stronger at every moment. Otherwise, how could he be mentioned in the same breath as those old monsters who had cultivated for countless years? If he was given so much time, he would not care about anyone, and no one would be able to threaten him. If Alchemy Emperor had already prepared the heaven-seizing pill, then the last project of Yishuin's trip to the path of creation would be considered completed. This was also the last trump card he had prepared to deal with the heaven-devouring demon emperor and the heavenly fire divine lord. After that, he was about to leave the path of creation. He could feel an ominous feeling more and more. It was an extremely uneasy feeling. It was a warning from the heavens. He must have miscalculated something. Therefore, he decided not to wait until the time was up before leaving. After all, he still had more than 500 units of law crystals. It was enough no matter how he looked at it. One day later, Yishuin arrived at the previous mark again. This time, it was different from before. At this time, no one dared to underestimate him. After all, he had killed the Eagle Horn Emperor, an invincible existence of the 10 great emperors, in front of everyone. No emperor dared to underestimate such terrifying combat power. In fact, many people were afraid that he would suddenly start a massacre. If that was the case, who could stop him? Even if they were all emperors, they were as fragile as paper in front of him. They would be torn with a single poke. Therefore, when Yishuin arrived, the entire market was silent. Everyone's eyes quietly turned to him. They didn't know what he wanted to do. These gazes were naturally within the range of Yishuin's perception. However, he didn't care. Instead, he went straight to Alchemy Emperor and asked straightforwardly, I wonder if Alchemy Emperor has collected all the materials during this time. Most of them have been collected, said Alchemy Emperor. During this time, he had been busy inside and outside the market. He didn't know what kind of powerful enemy Yishuin had killed in this short period of time. He didn't announce it himself, and the Battle Emperor didn't intend to spread the news for the time being. Therefore, he didn't know it all. It was just that when Yishuin killed the Eagle Horn Emperor, many people had seen it with their own eyes. Therefore, some people had taken the initiative to exchange for the heaven treasures that Alchemy Emperor was looking for. They wanted to establish a connection with Yi Shiwen through Alchemy Emperor. Even if other people didn't have such an idea, they didn't want to offend such a terrifying Shura character. Therefore, Yi Shiwen's attention would be focused on them. This was also the reason why Alchemy Emperor was so successful in such a short period of time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to refine the heaven-seizing pill with so many heaven treasures in a short period of time. Still lacking a little? How much more? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but ask. It's just some insignificant things. I have seen them outside. At worst, I can go out and look for them again. Most of the main medicinal materials have been found. You can rest assured about this, Martial Emperor, said Alchemy Emperor. That's good. You can look for me if you have any problems, said Yi Shiwen. Martial Emperor, long time no see. Suddenly, a crisp and sweet voice came from afar. Chapter 33:11. Yi Shiwen turned his head and saw that it was none other than Huang. Taoist Huang, it seems that your cultivation has improved. Congratulations. He smiled and said, there is nothing more blessings between cultivators than this. Taoist Martial Emperor's cultivation has also become more profound. Congratulations. Huang said, Taoist Martial Emperor, some time ago when I was purchasing medicinal herbs and treasures, Taoist Huang provided a lot of help. At this time, Dinda suddenly said, thank you for your help, Taoist Huang. Yi Shiwen said, it's nothing. Huang waved her hand and said, it seemed that it was really a small matter, but in fact it was not so. For Dinda to mention it alone, it must be a great help. This time, Taoist Martial Emperor killed Night Emperor and Electric Lord. When you return, the Fortune God dynasty will definitely reward you heavily. Your future is limitless. Huang said the news lightly. Although Battle Emperor and the others did not say it, it was not something that could not be found out by those who were observant. In particular, the disappearance of the Night Emperor and the Electric Lord was inevitable. It was just that the news had yet to spread. Otherwise, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. This was already Yi Shiwen's third time killing the 10 great emperors and emperors. Not to mention Electric Lord, who was in existence above the 10 great emperors. Even if ordinary people did not know, at least they knew that Electric Lord was definitely not inferior to the 10 great emperors. The death of such experts would definitely cause a huge uproar. Whether it was the Fortune Divine Dynasty or the Outer Realms, when it came to the 10 great emperor realm and 10 emperors, it was rare for them to be replaced. Even if there was an occasional replacement, it would be considered a major event. But now, several of them had fallen in succession. Because none of the 10 imperial monarchs or monarchs were alone, and they were supported by numerous enormous powers. These powers usually covered the entire Fortune world, and once they were shaken, it could even shake the foundation of the Fortune world. The 10 great emperors and 10 great emperors were just the representatives of these behemoths and the top beneficiaries. Thinking of this, Huang felt that her previous idea of cooperating with Yi Shiwen was indeed correct. This person's strength was unfathomable. It was simply unimaginable. His future was limitless. As for helping him collect some medicinal herbs and heavenly treasures, it really wasn't much. It was just a means to curry favor. Could it be that Huang is here to exchange for something? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but ask, a little puzzled. What is Huang planning to do instead of taking the time to look for Mao Zedong? Yes, I did gain something. I want to see if I can exchange it for something. Huang said with a smile. If that's the case, then I won't disturb you any further. See you again after we leave the path of good fortune, Yi Shiwen said as he cupped his hands in obeisance. What? Could it be that fellow Taoist Martial Emperor wants to leave the path of creation so soon? Huang could not help but be stunned. There was still some time before the path of creation completely closed. Why do they have to leave so early? I have obtained enough. There is no benefit in staying here any longer. Naturally, I have to leave, Yi Shiwen said. If Miss Huang is fine, you might as well leave as soon as possible. What's the matter? Did fellow Taoist Martial Emperor find some clues? Huang could not help but ask. Her heart suddenly tightened. She naturally believed that Yi Shiwen would not speak carelessly. Because of this, she had to be more careful with his warning. No, I just feel that something is wrong. I feel that there is some danger, Yi Shiwen said. Oh, Huang breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen had not found any dangerous places. Otherwise, she would have to leave even if she did not want to. However, even so, she intended to keep her spirits up and be vigilant. With Yi Shiwen's identity and status, it was impossible for him to speak without thinking. It was better to be careful. Just as Yi Shiwen was about to leave the path of fortune, a piece of news suddenly spread among the many sovereign emperors. It was unknown who had fanned the flames behind the scenes, but the news had already spread among the many sovereign emperors overnight. A large number of law crystals have been found on an ancient road in the depths of the path of creation. The news of a large number of law crystals immediately caused many sovereign emperors to vaguely go into a riot. That the path of creation contained good fortune was, in reality, just a rumor. After the fortune heavenly lord, no one knew what it was. However, the law crystals were right in front of them. They could touch them. It was also their main goal. How could they not be excited at this time? As the news spread, more and more information was spread. It was said that this large number of law crystals was at least tens of thousands of units. They were everywhere. It was only because it was protected by a barrier that it had not been breached. Otherwise, it would have long been plundered. More and more sovereign emperors heard this news. They could not sit still and went to the rumored location. In a secret space, Yi Shiwen's expression was solemn. This news was released just as he was about to leave. Wasn't it clear that they were trying to lure him to stay? Fellow Taoist, Martial Emperor, are you interested in these law crystals? Alchemy Emperor asked on a cloud bed on the other side. What's the matter? Are you interested? Yi Shiwen raised his eyebrows and glanced at Alchemy Emperor before asking. It would be a lie to say that I'm not interested. Although it's not the time for me to use the law crystals, I also know that there are probably only a few units of law crystals in our hands now. This is a fortune that will drive anyone crazy. Alchemy Emperor smiled and did not hide anything. The value of the law crystals itself was not high. However, it was completely different if it was related to advancing to the Heavenly Master Realm. Since fellow Taoist Martial Emperor is also interested, let's go. Even if we encounter something terrifying, so what? Yi Shiwen stood up and said. His words were filled with boundless confidence. The sword aura he had subdued was originally prepared to fight against a heavenly master. He was confident that he could even trick a heavenly master, let alone other things. Not to mention Alchemy Emperor, even Yi Shiwen was no exception. No matter what kind of dragon's pool or tiger's den this represented, Yi Shiwen decided to go in. Let's go together. Alchemy Emperor laughed heartily. As an emperor, he did not lack the courage to fight. The two of them laughed heartily before heading towards the rumored place. This was a small path. The roadside was littered with the corpses of emperor and emperor-level life forms. The sand and wind on the path of creation had worn away their flesh and bones, which had eternal divinity, until they had lost their luster. There was a desolate and decaying scene everywhere. It was extremely horrifying looking from afar. Countless law crystals could be seen everywhere. They were so solid that even the attacks of emperor-level life forms could be ignored. At the end of this path was a huge space. The periphery of this space was a huge enchantment. Within the enchantment, law crystals were floating up and down. They were even connected together. With hundreds of law crystals as one, they formed a miniature mineral vein. There were even a few mineral veins with thousands of law crystals condensed together. Strange. How can there be so many law crystals in this place? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but feel a little strange. The conditions for law crystals to form were very stringent. Basically, it could only be formed when different laws collided by chance. This place shouldn't have had the conditions to produce law crystals in the first place. Someone must have left them here. But who is it? Why did they leave the law crystals here? Yi Shiwen looked at the periphery of the enchantment and knew that it was man-made. However, he didn't know who did it. There were too many secrets in this path of creation. Now, these secrets have been buried in the sand and wind with the passage of time. No one knew. At this time, the Emperor-level life forms were hidden in the void around the enchantment. Not a single one of them revealed their traces. However, their attacks did not stop. Although this enchantment was powerful and Yi Shiwen didn't know who had arranged it, it couldn't withstand the joint attacks of so many tyrannical Emperor-level life forms. Among them, Yi Shiwen also saw many familiar figures. Battle Emperor, Huang, and the others were also among them. Although they hid very well, they couldn't hide in Yi Shiwen's eyes now that he had integrated with the Eye of Sky Punishment. If he was in his dual pupil state, he might not be able to see them. However, after integrating with the Eye of Sky Punishment, they were like candlelight in the night. They were too obvious. It was already not bad for an ordinary Emperor-level life form to have a few units of law crystals. Yi Shiwen could already be considered to have become rich overnight by obtaining thousands of units of law crystals. Now, there were actually tens of thousands of law crystals here. It was conceivable that no one would be able to control themselves. Even the Emperor-level life forms would go crazy for it. This was the greatest hope of entering the Heavenly Master Realm. Even if they didn't enter the Heavenly Master Realm, they could use it to greatly increase their cultivation speed. However, very few people used it as it was too wasteful. Beside Yi Shiwen, Pill Emperor had also joined in the bombardment of the enchantment. Everyone wanted to break the enchantment as soon as possible and seize the law crystals. After pondering for a while, he also decided to make a move. Perhaps Yi Shiwen's strength was completely different, or perhaps the enchantment itself was already on the verge of breaking. Yi Shiwen's overturning the heavens seal fell, and the entire enchantment was shattered in front of everyone's eyes. Ha 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 ha, it's finally broken. All the law crystals are mine. A figure jumped out. Immediately after, everyone rushed in like crazy. Chapter 33:12. The enchantment was broken, and everyone rushed in, fearing that the law crystals would be taken by others and they wouldn't get a share. Although there were tens of thousands of law crystals, with so many emperors present, there might not be enough to go around. Moreover, even if there were enough law crystals, they would want more. These things were related to whether or not they could enter the heavenly venerate realm. Naturally, the more law crystals they obtained, the better. Thinking of this, everyone became anxious. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One figure after another flew out like lightning. Then, in the blink of an eye, countless big hands descended from the sky and directly grabbed the law crystals. Fortunately, the law crystals were originally linked together in strings, so they were very easy to grab. However, because they were linked together in strings, there were only a few dozen mini law crystal mineral veins in total. However, there were probably hundreds of Emperor Lords and Emperor-level life forms. In an instant, there were 10 people competing for a mini law crystal mineral vein. Such a competition could be said to be extremely fierce. However, this had nothing to do with Yi Shiwen. He took a step forward and grabbed with his big hands. Although the movements of the many Emperor Lords weren't slow, their speed was nothing compared to Yi Shiwen's. Yi Shiwen took the lead and grabbed the largest law crystal minuscule lode. Yi Shiwen grabbed the law crystal minuscule lode in his hand. There were 2,000 units of law crystal in his hand. Just this alone was enough to make this trip worthwhile. Following closely behind him was a 9th realm martial monarch life form. When he saw that he had failed to capture the law crystal vein, he was immediately enraged. He was not the only one. Several other 9th realm sovereign emperors and martial monarch life forms had also followed him. These experts had set their eyes on the largest law crystal mineral lode at the same time. They wanted to snatch it. However, they couldn't keep up with Yi Shiwen's speed. Yi Shiwen had already succeeded in obtaining it in a short period of time. Martial Emperor, aren't you being too overbearing by snatching it all? At this time, an Emperor-level life form said angrily. During this time, Yi Shiwen had made a huge name for himself. Originally, Many people didn't know him, but now they all knew such a tyrannical figure. Therefore, they just glared at Yi Shiwen and didn't dare to step forward. Yi Shiwen's fierce reputation was too great. He killed the 10 great Emperor Lords and 10 Emperor-level life forms without any hesitation. Was there anyone he didn't dare to kill? Noisy. Yi Shiwen sneered and directly slapped out with his palm. That Emperor-level creature was startled and angry at the same time. Yi Shiwen had recklessly launched an attack on him. Although he was afraid of Yi Shiwen, it didn't mean that he was afraid of Yi Shiwen. After all, he was a 9th Realm Emperor-level life form. How had he given so easily? He still wanted to resist, but this thought had only just appeared in his mind. In the next instant, he saw this palm penetrate through space, shatter space, and rush in front of him in an instant. He was also hit in an instant. Puff! A mouthful of old blood spurted out, and his whole body was smashed on the spot, turning into a rain of blood that scattered all over the sky. The spirit contained in it was also completely destroyed in an instant. An extremely tyrannical 9th Realm superpowerhouse was killed by Yi Shiwen's palm. The 9th Realm Emperor-level life forms and Emperor-level life forms who were watching were almost scared to death. They originally thought whether they should attack together with the dead Emperor-level life form. With so many of them, they had to make Yi Shiwen spit out some law crystals. After all, with so many Emperor-level life forms joining forces, their strength was extraordinary. But now, they were almost scared to death. That Emperor-level creature wasn't weak, but it was still killed by Yi Shiwen's palm. If they had been in Yi Shiwen's place, then the result wouldn't have been any better. After all, they wouldn't have been able to resist Yi Shiwen's palm. Could he have entered the Heavenly Master Realm? A 9th Realm Sovereign Emperor felt a chill run down his spine. They had all heard the rumors, but even in the rumors, they had never heard that Yi Shiwen had become so powerful that he could kill a 9th Realm Emperor-level creature with a single palm strike. Even the legendary 10 great Emperor-level experts could not do this. At most, they could seriously injure them with a palm, which was already very rare. But now, Yi Shiwen had such an ability. It was almost like a miracle. No wonder they suspected that Yi Shiwen had entered the Heavenly Master Realm. Only in this way could he achieve such an amazing feat. Yi Shiwen didn't care about the shock in everyone's hearts at this time. He asked indifferently, "Why? Do you still want to ask me for it?" The other Emperor-level life forms looked at each other and immediately disappeared without a trace. They really didn't want to fight to the death with Yi Shiwen. It should be known that they were super powerhouses who had entered the 9th Realm. Except for Yi Shiwen, who was a super freak, they could definitely be regarded as the peak. As long as they didn't fight with Yi Shiwen, who was a big freak, they could easily rob others. Moreover, the matter of Yi Shiwen killing a 9th Realm super expert in seconds had completely scared them silly. Who would dare to rob a tiger's whiskers at this time? Yi Shiwen saw that they had disappeared and immediately showed a satisfied smile on his face. Then, he joined in the scramble again. Almost every miniature law crystal mineral vein was being fought over, and they restrained each other, resulting in many miniature law crystal mineral veins being unable to be taken away. Especially those mineral veins with thousands of units of law crystal, many experts were fighting over them, and the winner couldn't be determined in a short time. Therefore, Yi Shiwen took action at this time, but it was the right time. Swish, swish, swish. Yi Shiwen just kept attacking, stretching out his big hands to grab these law crystals. Their skills were far inferior to Yi Shiwen's, and they couldn't keep up with Yi Shiwen's speed at all. Even the 9th Realm super experts couldn't stop Yi Shiwen at all. In the blink of an eye, all the law crystals had been snatched away. For a time, there were continuous curses everywhere. Many people were directly snatched away by Yi Shiwen, but they didn't dare to attack him. At that time, the scene of Yi Shiwen killing the 9th Realm Emperor-level creature in one move had completely frightened them. How would they dare to find trouble with Yi Shiwen again? Although they knew that Yi Shiwen would definitely have scruples if there were more people, none of them were willing to be the first to stand out, lest they get killed by Yi Shiwen in a rage. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen harvested a lot of law crystals. When all the law crystals were finally settled, Yi Shiwen alone had harvested tens of thousands of law crystals. Under such circumstances, many people returned empty-handed. They all glared at Yi Shiwen, as if they were going to rush up and fight Yi Shiwen at any time. It was precisely because Yi Shiwen had snatched away a small portion of the law crystals that they didn't get anything. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care at all, and even helped Dende snatch hundreds of units of law crystals. Although these people were resentful, they wouldn't make a move, so he didn't care much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have paid a special price to use the Universe Creation Palm to kill a 9th Realm Emperor-level creature. Under normal circumstances, Yi Shiwen would have to pay a price to kill a 9th Realm Emperor-level creature, and it wouldn't be so easy. However, the effect was very obvious. At this time, no one dared to find trouble with him. Okay, since we have already snatched the law crystals, the next step is to retreat. Yi Shiwen said to Denden next to him. Denden nodded quickly. In the process of fighting for the law crystals, he had already seen Yi Shiwen's amazing combat power, and he was already full of admiration. An Emperor-level creature of the 9th Realm was still an invincible existence for him, but for Yi Shiwen, it was nothing more than a palm strike. And he had watched Yi Shiwen soar all the way to his current amazing realm. Back then, Yi Shiwen was only slightly stronger than him, and now he had reached a realm that he couldn't even look up to. However, at this moment, a boundless terror suddenly appeared in the world. Everyone felt it. It was not a physical existence, but a feeling that pervaded their hearts. What is this feeling? Battle Emperor suddenly felt this sense of crisis, and he immediately became vigilant. The other sovereign emperors also sensed this feeling of extreme danger one after another. It was as if the world had changed and everything was out of their control. Above the sky, an incomparably huge hand descended from the sky, directly grabbing everyone. Immediately, everyone was furious. They had always been the ones attacking others. When did others dare to attack them so arrogantly? All kinds of terrifying attacks swept up in an instant and blasted towards the giant hand. But soon, they discovered that these attacks were useless when they landed on this huge hand. All of them turned into nothingness around this huge hand, as if they were completely disintegrated by some kind of power and couldn't directly affect this huge hand. Bang! Many Emperor Lords were instantly shocked when they saw that their attacks were ineffective, and they immediately scattered. However, there was still a 3rd Realm Emperor-level creature that couldn't dodge in time, and was caught by this huge hand. Then, this 3rd Realm Emperor-level creature was squeezed into a pool of blood, and an incomparably huge glass bottle appeared in mid-air, and this pool of blood was absorbed, leaving nothing behind. Chapter 33:13. A great fear suddenly arose in everyone's hearts. Even when Yi Shiwen had killed a top expert of the 9th Realm with a single palm strike, it had not made them so terrified. Yi Shiwen was strong, but he was still within the scope of their understanding. However, the strength of this unknown existence was far beyond their understanding. According to their understanding, only a heavenly venerate powerhouse could possess such tyrannical strength. Yi Shiwen could slap a 3rd Realm Sovereign Emperor and an Emperor-level creature to death. However, he couldn't crush a 3rd Realm Sovereign Emperor to death as if it were a piece of cake. Then, he could turn it into a pool of blood and collect it. It seemed similar, but it was not the same. In other words, it was not the same thing at all. What is that? Yi Shiwen quickly opened the eye of heavenly punishment and immediately saw a woman in white standing in the sky. She held a glass bottle in her hand and looked down at the sovereign emperors with an indifferent expression. It was as if she was looking at ants, cold and emotionless. Yi Shiwen was too familiar with such a look. This was because many emperors looked at creatures below the emperor level with such a look, cold and emotionless. However, that was only when imperial emperors looked at living beings below the imperial emperor rank. Such things never happened between imperial emperors. This was because even if there was a huge difference in strength, they were equal on the path of seeking Tao. That was why they called each other fellow Taoists. However, This woman in white was completely different. She was cold, emotionless, and extremely powerful. She was far superior to ordinary people. Not only Yi Shiwen, but the others also saw the appearance of this woman, and they were immediately horrified. Although they were fiercely fighting over those law crystals just now, among the hundreds of sovereign emperors present, not a single one had noticed it. This in itself was a very frightening matter. Who is that person? Why do I feel that she is a little familiar? The battle emperor squinted his eyes. He seemed to have remembered the origin of this figure. Heavenly venerate, vast cloud. The battled arch spat out these 4 words. He was shocked by himself because he finally remembered who this heavenly venerate, vast cloud was. What? Heavenly master misty cloud. The butterfly sovereign's expression changed immediately. Although he had not been cultivating for a long time, the bloodline of this race flowed in his body. There were many inherited memories in it, including heavenly venerate vast clouds' inherited memories. Apart from the butterfly sovereign, the other imperial emperors' expressions changed one after another because this represented a legendary name. As a woman, she eventually became a celestial lord and became a supreme existence. That was an invincible era. Among the emperors, she was also an invincible existence. With her strength alone, she suppressed the 10 emperors of that time. And in the end, she successfully advanced to the heavenly venerable realm, becoming the ruler of the Fortune Divine Dynasty. There is even a rumor that she could become the Northern Heavenly Venerable, ruling over the Fortune Divine Dynasty's northern region. However, there was no trace of her after that. Some people said that they saw her forcefully enter the path of creation and eventually disappear. No one heard any news about her after that. Some said that she had obtained good fortune, while others said that she had died on the path of good fortune. It was just that as time passed, very few people would pursue her whereabouts. However, when they saw her again at this time, it was horrifying and terrifying. It can't be. Heavenly venerate vast cloud is still alive. Many people immediately began to feel horrified. If heavenly venerate vast cloud was still alive, it would be extremely terrifying. Especially in this place, what exactly was she doing? These emperors were not fools. On the contrary, they were all smart people. Even if they had little information, they could still deduce a part of it. On this path of creation, even with their cultivation, they were unable to absorb even the slightest bit of spiritual energy. In other words, they were unable to obtain any replenishment. However, it did not matter to them, because as imperial emperors, which one of them did not possess peerless treasures and possessed unimaginable wealth? Although the consumption was great, it was not difficult for them to provide spiritual energy for their use in such a short period of time. However, if they were to stay here for a long time, for millions or even tens of millions of years, it would be difficult for them to support such consumption even with their wealth. Therefore, they had to replenish their consumption. Was there a better consumable than them? Emperors? Thinking of this, many emperors felt chills down their backs. If they were imprisoned in a dark place, and a group of emperor candidates broke in at this time, they would not let them go. It was precisely because they judged others in this way that they felt even more horrified. In fact, heavenly venerate vast cloud did exactly that. Don't be afraid. No matter how strong heavenly venerate vast cloud is, could she kill all of them? Very soon, many emperors calmed down. None of them who could cultivate to this level were fools. They were all smart people. They had also thought it through. No matter how strong heavenly venerate vast cloud was, they could not be afraid of her with so many of them. No matter how strong she was, she could not be this strong. However, this was not the only thing that was terrifying. In the sky, another silhouette slowly appeared. It was a man with the appearance of an old man. His entire body was thin and weak, just like an ordinary old man. However, the monstrous aura that came from his body caused many people to feel terrified. Moreover, he could stand side by side with heavenly venerate vast cloud. What kind of terrifying person was he? These people looked extremely terrifying. However, Their identities seemed to be a problem. Many people seemed to have some impression of them, but it seemed like they could not remember them. It should be known that with the memory of emperors, such a situation should not occur. Basically, they should have seen it once and recorded it all down. However, when this matter involved existences that were far more powerful than them, they would suffer from some invisible interference at the same time, so they could not remember it completely. As time passed, this kind of memory would fade, just like ordinary people. Therefore, when they had such a feeling, they immediately understood that it should be a tyrannical person that was far more powerful than them. However, this was not the end. On the opposite side of these two people, a man wearing golden armor and holding an iron spear had appeared. He was sitting on a ferocious beast with a pair of wings on its ribs. No one knew what kind of ferocious beast it was, but it was extremely terrifying. As soon as this man in golden armor appeared, it suddenly seemed like the entire space had turned into a huge battlefield. There were shouts and roars everywhere. Unimaginable fear surged in everyone's chest. On the other side, another figure appeared. It was a middle-aged man wearing an ancient robe. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand and looked at everyone coldly. His eyes looked as if he was looking at dead things, making everyone feel a chill down their spine. Seniors, I don't know how we have offended you. Please tell us what you need us to do. We will definitely not refuse. At that moment, someone stepped forward and said, they all realized the danger of this situation. If it was only Celestial Master Misty Cloud, then they might be able to deal with him if they joined forces. However, when these extremely tyrannical people of all shapes and sizes appeared, they felt that their chances of winning were really not high. If this continued, they would really be annihilated. Many emperors felt their eyelids twitching at this time, and their hearts were bleeding. It was not that easy to send these people away. They did not know how much they would have to pay in order to achieve this. What do I need you to do? Kaka, I want you to hand over your lives. Suddenly, a slightly sharp laughter came from afar. A spear fell from the sky, and almost in an instant, it pierced through a powerful emperor-level creature. Then, the emperor-level creature directly turned into blood, turned into a monstrous river, and was caught by a big hand. Soon, the owner of this big hand also appeared. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen's pupils shrank slightly, and he suddenly clenched his fists. Emperor Han Yuan. Yi Shiwen immediately recognized the identity of the person in front of him. Who else could it be but Emperor Han Yuan, whom he had not seen for many years? Since he was still in the Myriad Heavens realm, he had been constantly fighting with Emperor Han Yuan. There were times when Emperor Han Yuan had plotted against him, but there were also times when he had the upper hand and cut off Emperor Han Yuan's big hand that had penetrated into the Myriad Heavens realm. He could be considered to have his own talent. However, since entering the path of creation, he had suffered a huge loss in the fight between the two sides and ended up being seriously injured. Such a task could be said to be his peerless enemy. How could he forget it? Now, he completely recognized him the moment he saw him, and the killing intent in his heart suddenly boiled. Emperor Hun Yuan's words immediately made a kind of fear and anger rise from the bottom of the hearts of the Emperor Han Yuan. They were afraid that these peerless powerhouses would kill them, but at the same time, they were extremely angry. Who were they? How could they be looked down upon so much by someone who wanted to kill them all in one fell swoop? This was simply a complete annihilation of them. Suddenly, Emperor Han Yuan discovered Yi Shiwen in the crowd, and a somewhat playful sneer appeared on his face. He said, I didn't expect it to be you, kid. I haven't seen you for a short time, and you have actually cultivated to this level. I'm afraid that if you were given some time, stepping into the Heavenly Master Realm would not be a delusion. Everyone immediately looked at Yi Shiwen in unison. They were somewhat curious as to what kind of grudge existed between these two. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.